Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in-depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high-octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling. Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling. I'm your host, Josh, the Commander of Chaos, and joining me, as always, is my exceptional co-host, the Valkyrie of Victory, Dawn. Tonight, we're covering AEW's Full Gear from November 23rd. Let's get into it. And Full Gear is being brought to us from Newark, New Jersey, and right out the box, they hit us with a big match. It's the Fatal 4-Way AEW World Tag Team Championship. The parties involved are Private Party, the defending tag team champions, the Acclaimed, the Kings of the Black Throne, and the Outrunners. Yay, Outrunners. Yay. And there was a lot going on in this match. It's an AEW specialty to have these multi-man matches, and this one didn't disappoint with each and every one of these teams having a moment to shine. Some of them a couple of moments to shine. And there was a big through line throughout this match of the Acclaimed not being on the same page. Max Caster and Anthony Bowens are looking like they're going to be not a tag team soon if this keeps up.
Yeah. Like, mommy and daddy can't stop fighting, and I can't leave the dinner table until dinner's done.
Indeed. And right off the gate, we have right out the gate we pretty quickly get into it with the Acclaimed and the Outrunners. And Bowens is in the match trying to tag Caster. Caster isn't paying attention. Truth Magnum comes in and body slams Cassidy, and then the Outrunners, hit the double bicep elbow drop. Then they deliver some right hands for everyone from Turbo Floyd. And then you end up with Floyd and Malachi Black in the ring for a little bit, and he dumps Black outside the ring. But then Brody comes in and drops him. And here you end up with a bit of a small standoff between Floyd, Turbo Floyd, and Brody King. And Floyd is starting to charge up, kind of a la a hulking up. And he gets charged up, and he tries to go off on...
it floyding up?
Floyding up, right. You're right. My bad. But he tries to go off on Big Brody King, and Big Brody King just lays him out. Like, he isn't having any of that. And you end up with a superplex from Brody King and a diving double foot stomp by Malachi Black. And it's not looking so hot for Turbo Floyd.
Yeah.
And then Malachi hits everyone who's currently outside the ring, kind of brawling and whatnot, with a huge moonsault. And then back inside the ring, you have the other teams, the other members of the other teams, all gang up to try and take out Brody King, because how else will they? Because Brody King is ginormous.
Yeah, he's just yeeting people left and right and just saying no with his foot.
Yep.
And they just got tired of hearing.
Yeah.
They just got tired of hearing no. It was just foot to face, bark, bark, foot to face. And they were like, no, we're tired of this shit. So they finally band together to do something about it.
Yep. And Bowen goes up top for the Scissor Me Timbers. And then afterwards, once they've dealt with King, at least for now, Bowens wants to hit the scissors to Turbo Floyd, who's doing kind of like the pose, and the crowd is really getting into this, like the idea of the Acclaimed and Turbo Floyd, or Bowens and Turbo Floyd playing well together, except like Max Caster isn't having any of that shit. He comes in immediately and punches Floyd in the face, knocking him down, and man, the response from New Jersey. If they were a somewhat quiet crowd, the one thing that they were not quiet about is when they wanted to tell somebody "fuck you," and man, the
Oh yeah,
chants of "fuck you, Caster" were ringing loud.
yeah. No, they. I'm surprised that nobody had a sign that said it. They were ready for it. Like they had been rehearsing. Like they got together the night before and they're like, "You remember what you have to say, right? Fuck you, Caster. I got it, right?"
Yep. And it was right around this time that let's see, Truth Magnum comes in, but he catches a Hangman's neck breaker, and then we have a suplex from Bowens, but he runs into a super kick at this point from Quinn of Private Party, and Max Caster hits an attitude adjustment on Truth Magnum and takes him out with a running drop kick. But now Private Party's involved, and so Enzigiri's by Private Party to, I want to say, the Outrunners, and then they go up top, one on each side at the far corners, and they hit a set of stereo 450 splashes, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it only gets a 2 count, and the Outrunners counter that with a pair of clotheslines and a double elbow drop. And this is when the return of the Knights of the Black Throne takes place. They pull the Outrunners outside the ring, and King hits a massive black hole slam on Anthony Bowens. Big boss man slam for those that aren't familiar with Abyss. It's the same slam, but it was ginormous. I was like, well, there goes the Acclaimed. And he follows that up with like a cannonball and a big boot combo with him and Malachi Black to, I think, also Bowens in the corner. And then I want to say he tries to go for it again and misses, and the Outrunners pop in, and this is when they're able to, beyond all rational thought and belief, Turbo Floyd is able to lift up Big Brody King into a power slam position for them to hit Total Recall, and they do. They hit Total Recall on Big Brody King, and I'm like, oh shit, this is where the Outrunners are going to steal the win, right? And the crowd is like losing their minds. Like, this is the best thing that they have ever seen in their lives. And then Caster tags himself in and comes in and breaks up the pin. And this is where we really get the very definitive "fuck you, Caster" chants, because the crowd was so pissed. I was pissed. I was like, "Fuck you, Caster." That he broke up the Outrunners, hitting Total Recall on Brody King.
Yeah.
And Bowens and Caster are now in the ring, and I think they're dealing with Private Party at this point. No, I'm sorry. At this point, I want to say Bowens and Caster are face to face. And I guess it was a property of the rules that it's just whoever pins who first, because it wasn't clear to me at the time, but then they went for this play where Max Caster lays down on his back and invites Bowens to pin him. And I'm like, is this one of those matches where you can pin your own teammate as long as the pin happens? So they go for it, and I guess it was legal because the ref starts the count. But Cassidy comes off the top with a swanton and only gets a 2 count off of the attempt to pin Max Caster. And then you have, I want to say, they attempted a roll-up pin on Isaiah Cassidy for 2. And at some point, Caster then makes a blind tag to Bowens, who had reversed, I want to say, Isaiah Cassidy into another roll-up. And this time the ref isn't counting, and Bowens ends up letting go, looking around like, what the hell? And it's because Caster had tagged himself in, and he wants to go up to the top for their combination move with the mic drop after Bowens hits his, I'm not sure what the move is, but it's sort of a modified side slam. And while they're kind of confused about how this needs to go, Caster makes his way up to the top, only to have Turbo Floyd knock him down so that he's in a seated position on the top rope. And this is when Private Party comes in. They throw Bowens out, and then they proceed to hit Gin and Juice on Max Caster to pick up the win. And so you still have Private Party as the reigning and defending AEW World Tag Team Champions. All in all, a pretty solid match. Everybody got to shine, and man, if the crowd isn't ready to see the Outrunner succeed, so much so that not everybody apparently loves the Acclaimed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, this was still a good match, and I'm okay with Private Party winning. I kind of figured that they would. You and I had a conversation while watching this episode, and I think you asked me if I thought they would retain, and I said
Mm-hmm.
then that I thought so. So I wasn't too surprised by them retaining, but the match was really good, and I was a little bit surprised with how well the Outrunners played with the rest of the other tag teams, because you got some really different styles there, right? So you're wondering, what is that going to look like? It looked pretty good, looked fun. Um,
Well,
King to the Black Throne, there for them all
Yep.
day, every day. T-shirts, stickers, tattoos, markers, whatever, chewing gum, whatever.
What does the House of Black chewing gum taste like?
Death. Or pain.
Taste of pain.
Yeah, you have something on your face. Punch. It was pain.
It was pain. Yeah. No, just to comment on something you said about the Outrunners. Like, not only did they have a good showing in there with the Acclaimed, but they had a fantastic moment where they were able to total recall the biggest member of the House of Black. And I think there's a statement in there. Like, I don't think that was random. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, they're trying to show you that, yes, the Outrunners are goofy in their 80s and they're kind of a kitschy team, but that they can go with the big dogs in the yard.
As almost,
and I think that was important
to a comment that I made about the Outrunners in one of our last AEW podcasts. I mentioned how I was concerned about whether or not they could stand the test of time, basically, or basically hang in there with other wrestlers and more grittier, more technical styles. And yeah, look, they can. I think they're letting us know they can go hard on the paint. And okay, you shut me up. All right, I'm here for it. Look, I'm already a fan, man. I just had a question. You answered it. I'll sit down for the rest of this show and shut the fuck up. You got it.
Nobody wants that. Besides, you still need to be around to say like "fuck you" to certain wrestlers later in the program.
Oh yeah. You know who you are.
They do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like all of these tag teams had a moment to shine. Although I'm curious I can't help but wonder, are they trying to really legitimately break up the Acclaimed, or where are they going with that one? I'm really still curious about that.
I don't know. I don't know, and I don't know what I think about that either, to be honest. I like Max Caster. He's, he good. And I do like Anthony Bowens.
I believe you meant to say he's the best in the world.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Nah.
But his jacket says, oh, sorry.
Yeah, well, my mom used to tell me that I was the smartest kid in the world. Okay, not everything that people tell you be true.
You're not making a case here. I think you're the smartest girl in the world.
Okay, listen. Here's my point. My point is, okay, he's not the greatest wrestler in the world. Others exist. Okay, that's all. That's all I'm saying. So his shirt, his jacket can say it all day long. I could get me a shirt that says I'm a millionaire. I'm gonna get me a jacket that says I'm the richest woman in the world. And by God, if I am not rich by the time that jacket's on me,
we'll just have to fake it till we make it, right?
Yeah,
much like Max Caster.
Yeah, but the thing is, he ain't gonna make it because he's not the great. He's a good wrestler. He's a good wrestler, and I know. We're just joking around. Okay, we understand. Like, that's just a little part of his shtick or whatever. But honestly, I don't know if I would be interested in these two wrestlers separate, doing their own thing. I don't know if there's enough there that that makes them stand out for me. That would make me go, oh shit, I gotta keep tabs on that Max Caster.
Yeah.
If anything, I could see Max going to oh my god, the
MVP, the
yes, thank you.
Hurt Syndicate.
Yeah, guys, and you know what came into my mind was the House of Black. Shut up, everybody, stop it. That's not what I meant. Not what I meant.
That's two on the chin. They can't call themselves. That'd be
Right,
weird.
right. But that was the thing. The first thing that came to my mind. I'm like, I can't say that. And then later on, be like, oh, I meant the Hurt Syndicate because I could just see the faces of all you judgmental people out there who would judge me. Yeah, I mean, he could go there, but what would Bowens do?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would have to assume that if there is in fact a story arc here about breaking up the Acclaimed, it's because both men have plans for what they want to do.
You know what? You're
not
right.
being the Acclaimed. I would hope.
Yeah.
I would hope, right?
I would hope. Yeah, but you know, I had hoped that they would have a better storyline for MJF and Adam Cole, and yet here we are. Or we're going to be there soon. Yeah, but honestly,
Indeed.
this was a good match, and Private Party pulling out the victors. I'm totally okay with. Because as I've said before, regardless of whether or not I think they are the best tag team for it, they have done a great job holding the belts, and they've done great in the ring. They look better. They're tight. They've tightened up their shit, man. And I think that right now their run is good. It's a good solid run.
Yeah.
And they're not running away from solid competitors. Yeah, Mariah May. They're not running away from solid competitors. They don't have weak bookings, they don't have weak matches. They're getting in there and they're doing their damn thing. And, no squash matches either. I'm looking at you again, Mariah May, So they don't wrestle just like, jobbers and then get on camera and talk about how they're the best in the division and they're going to squash and destroy this entire division. They don't do that.
No.
Mariah.
No, I agree with you, and I think it would have been really, really people would have been like, "Oh, see, Private Party was just a token run, we just put the belts on them for 3 seconds." If in their first-ish title defense, I think this might have been, they lost, but it could have gone either way, right? Because you could think that way, but this is also a fatal four-way with 3 badass other teams, so I mean, it would have been understandable if they had.
Yeah.
So not bad booking on this one, and a solid match to open with. I mean, you've got a big multi-man match. AEW realizes where they make their biscuits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Moving on from there, we are taking to Lexi Nair, who is in the back interviewing Orange Cassidy, and Orange Cassidy, with as much verve and vigor and fight in him that he could muster, basically says he's going to stand up to Moxley tonight and take the power from him, taking the AEW championship out of Moxley's briefcase and putting it in his backpack. Ooh.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the second match of the night, MJF versus Roderick Strong.
Yeah, and I will cut to the chase here. This was a good match. And excuse me, there were a couple of ways that Roderick Strong got to his backbreakers that just gave me delight.
Yep.
There were many ways where I was like, and I also like the fact that MJF spent a lot of the time trying to avoid said backbreakers. He did a lot of not today, motherfucker, not today. He did a lot of bobbing and weaving.
Oh yeah.
But then when he got that backbreaker, the first one, he goes, "Oh shit!"
Yep.
He gets the backbreaker.
But before we get there, we have MJF starting the match by picking up the mic and saying he enjoyed not being around in AEW while he was making million shooting movies, kind of like how Roderick Strong's mom shot his dad. Sick burn. And this is relevant for how the match ends up flowing. And then we can get right back to the litany of backbreakers. But early on, MJF attacks, I'm going to say Roderick's right hand, I think. And this becomes relevant because that hand then just does not want to play right for Roderick for the rest of the match. Like, he really screwed it. Like, they sell that his hand is really screwed up, and MJF continuously attacks it throughout, but he hurts it pretty bad early on. I want to say he bites it and slams it really hard. And so Roderick is fighting wounded the entirety of this match. So keep that in mind. Even with that being the case, he is just like, hello, have you met me? I'm the Messiah of the Backbreaker. And MJF will definitely like reconsider his religious affiliation with as many backbreakers as he got. He ate a half and half backbreaker. Then he got running lariated by Strong, and then an Argentine backbreaker that he then morphed into a buckle bomb, which was just nasty. And then I want to say Strong hit him with a running knee. Not quite the finisher running knee, but this was just like a regular running knee, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then he hits a massive angle slam. I will say I appreciate that Roderick Strong uses the angle slam. That's a nice looking move, and it's in keeping with his like, I'm gonna wreck your back. And then I want to say MJF was trying to retreat outside, but there was a running chop by Strong and a back suplex onto the guardrail outside the ring. And so Strong is making a consistent play to wreck MJF's back. Like, he's like, I'm going to break it. He tries to then sick kick MJF, but MJF like sidesteps it and sends Strong up and over in the corner and connects with a, like, when I say up and over, I mean, it was a situation where Roderick Strong ends up doing kind of a handstand on the turnbuckle, and then MJF kicked him in the face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I always think that looks so awful when they do that. Like not awful like it's a bad performance, but it's like, it looks like that would suck. Like, if that were you, it would be the worst. And MJF wants to hit Panama Sunrise, but Strong catches him midair with a backbreaker. Are you noticing a theme yet? MJF then tries to go to the eyes, but ends up eating a big drop kick, and Strong ends up catching him on his back and gets him in a Texas Cloverleaf, again working the back. But Strong is unable to continue to hold on to it after a few seconds because his left hand gives out, and MJF once again goes for that left hand, biting it some more. And Strong ends up just saying, I'm sick of your crap, and just picks him up and hits him with the end of Heartache and gets a 2 count off of it, because MJF was able to get his foot on the rope. And so Strong looks for another running knee, but MJF rolls outside. Strong ends up following. MJF brings it back into the ring. Strong hits the sick kick, and he tries to cover MJF, but he drapes his hand too far over MJF's chest, which allows him to catch it and immediately transition into Salt of the Earth, which is MJF's armbar. And because of all the damage that's been done to Roderick Strong's hand at this point, Strong ends up having to tap out immediately. And so you end up with a win by MJF. Yeah. And then following the match, MJF grabs a chair, unfolds it, and wraps it around Strong's arm, and then proceeds to stomp on it. And then, like, a week later, Adam Cole and the Kingdom and Kyle O'Reilly make their way out to check on Strong. And I'm sitting there thinking, I think we both were like, well, it's about time. I think even the announcers were like, you know, I think they commented on, where were you? Because if it were me, and after all of what Adam Cole had said about things, you'd be on standby during this match, right? You would think.
Yeah. No, they had a couple of more chips in that bag to finish, and they didn't know that the chair was happening right then and there.
Yeah, Hook showed up, and he had a bag of chips, and so what do you do, right?
What do you do?
So, but this is fairly, like, lengthily after MJF had plenty of time to go get the chair, put it around his arm, and then stomp on it, you know, and then Adam Cole and the Kingdom and Kyle O'Reilly all show up. And of course, MJF is like, holla, and he bails out into the crowd. And Cole is basically shouting after MJF, and then he turns his attention to Roderick Strong. And at this point, Kyle O'Reilly, who had given, Adam Cole kind of a bizarre dressing down on the Dynamite previously, shoves Cole down and blames him for Strong's injury.
At one point, though, he tells him to go after MJF, and I'm like, didn't you just say, though, that he should let it go?
Yeah.
And then when he comes out to check on Roderick, you then blame him for the match that you already knew was set. And you didn't tell Roderick not to have the match. You told Adam Cole to walk away. So what? And also, what's up with all these friends pushing their friends down? Look, that could only happen one damn time for me. We wouldn't be having, like, it won't be a push and then next week another push. What? I know. Now I understand this was his first push, but I'm just saying, like, you can't use your words, man. And what are you pushing him for anyway? Why are you even involved in this?
Especially if the priority is to help Roderick Strong, who probably doesn't appreciate you pushing Adam Cole down. In fact, he would probably appreciate it if you feeling that antsy, go chase after MJF.
Yeah.
Or help him out of the ring, which
help
Kyle
him.
eventually
Thank
does.
You. So, like, I'm not even sure why you're there to be honest, I don't know why you're there. The conglomeration is still backstage. Your man is going to have probably one of the biggest matches of his life tonight. Maybe you get your ass back there again. I don't know why you out here in the ring pushing Adam Cole for coming out to check on his friend who already had the match sanctioned when you were out there giving him his talk down.
Yeah, his friend, by the way, who wanted to do it so much himself that he won 3 matches in a row when Adam Cole didn't. So, yeah, it's weird how it's like, I guess Roderick Strong doesn't have agency. He's just a servant of Adam Cole's. So,
and now it's somehow his fault that Roderick Strong wanted to also have a match with MJF.
Yep.
He's being blamed somehow. Okay.
Like I said, it's weird. It was weird when Kyle O'Reilly came out and interrupted story time with Adam Cole Bebe. Like, it didn't track then, and it still doesn't track now.
No, because I honestly feel like this is their Kevin Owens versus Cody Rhodes type storyline.
Yeah, something.
That's what it's
weird.
coming out to be, because I see these two dudes having a fight for some reason. I see Kyle O'Reilly wanting to have a fight with Adam Cole because Adam Cole wants to have a fight with MJF. Like, and to blame another wrestler for being injured in a match. To blame one wrestler for another wrestler being and that wrestler wasn't the one who injured him? What the hell?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like MJF pile drove him or anything.
Then he wouldn't be able to walk.
I mean, that was Danny Garcia. I mean, all Roderick got was like his hand a little injured. Yeah. And I mean, if history tells us anything, because remember, Isaiah got his hand hammered, like with a ball peen hammer by John Moxley, and now they're tag champs. That's a sign that Roderick's coming up.
Yeah. Oh, like if he, yeah. You know what? Brilliant. I like that. We're gonna go with that. Yeah, that hand's gonna heal up, and he's gonna come back and take everybody's belt.
Yeah, and just like that, I solved for you, AEW. I made it make sense.
You're welcome, AEW.
Yeah, that one was free.
No, what the hell? No, it ain't.
Right, unless Tony Khan wants to drop a ton of money on us.
He was joking, Mr. Khan.
Yeah. Sorry, Tony. I meant it only cost like $500 million.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on from that confused bit of storyline on an otherwise good match. We enter into match 3, the AEW TBS Championship with Mercedes Moné versus Chris Statlander.
Ooh, I bet y'all think that I'm about to get on this mic and talk some shit about Mercedes Moné, and you are right. She still sucks, but this match was good. This match was good. It was good.
Yeah.
Chris Statlander put Mercedes Moné through the ringer. She made her work for those belts that Mercedes has. Chris said, "This is the match that you're going to need to have to make it make sense for you having one belt. We might have to do this again, but this is this is your payment for one belt, and for the TBS championship belt, you will receive one ass whipping." And she, she beat the stuffing out of Mercedes Moné. And now look, Mercedes didn't just take it, y'all. No, she didn't. Now, yeah, she did a whole bunch of Meteoras, but hey, at this point, I'm gonna assume that it's her thing, the way backbreakers are Strong's thing. So
Yeah,
I'll give her that.
except that Strong actually has enough other moves in his repertoire. I think at this point, everybody on the planet makes fun of the fact that who cares? I mean, anybody who cares about this stuff, right? Like anybody who is following along is sick of seeing Mercedes Moné hit 36 different flavors of the same flavor, which is Meteora. And the entire first third of the match is nothing but Mercedes trying to show us that she can hit the Meteora like 25 different times.
I honestly
speaking, her backstabber is like a Meteora variant.
Yeah.
So it's like this chick just absolutely enjoys doing stuff where she's using both of her knees. Let that land where it will.
If you if you guys think quickly move away. If you guys think screaming on the inside.
What? I ain't scared. What am I gonna get hit with? A Meteora?
Probably. And it'll just, if she hits you in the back of your neck, you'll be like, "Ah, thank you, great massage."
But that's where my dogging on Mercedes will end, because it's almost like they set it up for you to think, "Oh God, not this crap again," and that's when the latter 2/3 of the match kicks in. And I'll let you take over. Go ahead.
I honestly think that Miss Mercedes Meteora Monet, she did a whole bunch of Meteoras. That is true. And Statlander was like, "Okay, I'm gonna take that. Okay, I'm gonna take that." And listen, if you guys think that we are attacking Mercedes Monet right now, if you think so, then here's what I want you to do. I want you to find any really great wrestling headline blog post out there. Look for one that has a match with Mercedes Monet in it. Hit Control F and type in the word Meteora. I'm serious. You think I'm joking that she does a whole bunch of Meteoras? Then do that. Control F, type in Meteora, and then just go and look for where you'll find where that word is used when somebody is giving a recap of that match, and then you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. So I'm not going after her. I'm not attacking her just to be attacking her. I'm saying, oh, girl does a crazy amount of Meteoras. I cannot say the word now because I've said it so many times.
Sitting in the corner, Meteora. Running at you just off the ropes, Meteora. While you're on your back, Meteora. While she's on the top rope, Meteora. When you're running at her, some variant of a Meteora. And from behind, a backstabber, which is just a Meteora to your spine. So yeah, she does a lot, like run off the apron to the outside of the ropes, Meteora. Yeah. Like she uses that move so much. Like it is uncreative to do the same move so many times.
So again, and that's the only thing bad that I'm gonna say about Mercedes Meteora Monet. But I'm saying she does them a lot, mate, quite a lot, right? Quite a bit. So just go and look, and you'll see what I'm saying. But aside from that, all right, ignoring that and pretending like it never happened, I can't, because if I took her doing a Meteora out of the match, then the match would be 3 minutes long. But
can I say one more thing?
Yeah,
I gotta. I'm sorry. All right. For refresher, we tend to look up notes about the show, and in the write-up that we're looking at, even the author of this write-up has written another Meteora, And then there's a point where it's like Monet looks for the 30th Meteora of the match, but Statlander catches her and sends her flying. So I mean, it's not just us guys. Like it is known that she does the Meteora to an excessive degree.
Yeah. So this match was a great match, not necessarily because Mercedes Meteora Monet brought us something real. It was because Chris Statlander said, you can go ahead and have those 225 Meteoras because I'm going to slam your ass on this mat for about 10 minutes. I'm just going to whoop your ass.
That's true facts.
For about 10 minutes, girl. 10 good ass whooping minutes. And then you can do your 819th Meteora and we can call it a night. But yeah, it
was almost
was
like Statlander was letting her get him out of her system so that she could start doing other moves.
Yeah. And then she would do a Meteora and then try to pin because she's like, I want to go home. I'm tired. And so she would try to do a Meteora or some stupid, and then she would get up, she would try to get the pin, and then Statlander would kick out, and she would say, yo, she would freak. That shit had me rolling, niggas.
That was hilarious. Like, she was getting so frustrated trying to pin Statlander that she screamed so much in that match from anger.
If she wasn't getting yeeted, she was screaming. Or she was doing a Meteora. That was pretty much the match. Screaming, slams, Meteoras. That was it. No, and a backstabber, quote unquote, back Meteora.
Spinal Meteora, yep.
Yes, a spinal Meteora attack. But really, I mean, it was a good match because I think we got to see Chris Statlander beat Mercedes Monet's ass. I would have loved to let Chris Statlander get a belt because I think she's deserving of one. And it pisses me off that Mercedes Monet has two. And to think that she came to AEW and went to what was it, CMLL, and basically took the belt off of their champion who is not even with the company anymore. I can't remember her name, but she comes here all fast and quick like Motor City Machine Guns.
Oh,
takes
Stephanie
her
McClure.
Yeah, takes the belt off of Stephanie and then oh my god, that chapped my heart, guys. So I feel a little bit more okay about Mercedes having belts now since Chris Statlander got in there and just did the damn thing. But I do want Chris with the belt. And I would like that pretty soon. And I don't know why y'all tripping because y'all got 225 goddamn belts in AEW. I don't know why you needed 2 belts on Mercedes Monet. She only has the strength to hold one at a time. You give that girl 2 belts and she will fucking bend over, like just be laying in the middle. That's why she has Camille. Camille she helps with the belts. She helps because, you know, it's hard, okay? It's hard for Mercedes. Y'all need to quit. We ain't gonna see her for another week. She did so many Meteoras. She's gonna need a vacation. But all in all, good match.
If I can, let me give the rundown.
Yeah.
You all already know that the first third of the match is Meteora after Meteora after Meteora after Meteora, and then I think there's a Sunset Buckle Bomb in there, and then some more Meteora. But by that point, Statlander catches her and sends her flying with her own big buckle bomb. Like, she buckle bombed her hard into the corner. And then she hits Statlander, then hits Monet with a power slam. And we have a point where Statlander hits the Chaos Theory out of the corner. Chaos Theory being Chad Gable's finisher, for those that are familiar. Basically, it's, I think, an O'Connor roll into a German suplex. And that gets a 2 count. And then Statlander goes to put Monet up on her shoulders, but Monet then pops out into a crucifix bomb. And then from there, she tries to put the crossface on Statlander, but this time, like, it's almost like they listened, like, where it was not believable that Statlander was going to sit in the damn crossface by somebody who weighs 42 pounds. And so this time, Statlander takes that to heart and remembers, oh, right, I have muscle mass, and she just stands up.
Yeah.
And then they kind of go back and forth, and Monet hits her with a backstabber, so yet another version of a Meteora. But then she comes off the top with another Meteora. And this results in a 2 count. And then Statlander drills her with a discus lariat for her own 2 count. And then also attempts a Fisherman Michinoku driver. But Monet rolls through into a pinning combination for 2.
Mm-hmm.
Statlander hangs on, rolls back over, stands up with Monet like in tow, and then plants her for a long 2 count with what looked like a hellacious Michinoku driver, if I remember correctly. And then Stat goes for the Saturday Night Fever, but Monet pushes off the turnbuckle and counters into a Tornado DDT, which was actually, that I thought was really cool. And at this point, I'm like, okay, Monet's doing something other than a Meteora.
Yeah.
Now I'm locked in. And then Monet surprisingly hits all 3 of the 3 amigos, a la Eddie Guerrero, which I was surprised because I thought Statlander would catch her on like number 2 or number 3, but nope, Monet got all of them.
Yeah.
And then she tries to dive off the top rope, but Statlander caught her on her shoulders and then drills her with a beautiful F5. Like somewhere Brock Lesnar is going, there's a disturbance in the force. It was fantastic, and I thought that was it, right? Because that move hit so hard that I was like, that's a finisher, and no, only a 2 count. So Stat goes up top thinking 450, and we were both like, why? You know, Statlander is clearly a power wrestler. I think at that point in the match, too, they had she had done something to make her knee hurt, and, you know, even the announcers are going, you know, if you miss this 450, it's going to wreck your knee some more. And so, of course, she misses the 450 and lands hard on her knee.
Yeah.
So Monet seizes on this and goes and grabs her by the leg and proceeds to kind of ground and pound the knee like she's punching it. And then she climbs up top and she actually frog splashes her in the knee. And that gets a very long 2 count. And then Monet is like, I'm like, again, remember, she's screaming every time Statlander kicks out. So she's like, seriously pissed at this point, so she hits a backstabber, and then she, you know, that gets a 2, and then she does a sit out gory face buster, which is like, I think that's what is she calling it? That's her newer finish that we say doesn't look good and doesn't, you know, when she does it. This actually didn't look bad. But she hits it, and so we're like, oh man, she hit her finisher. Well, nope, Statlander kicks out, and she counters an attempt at a Mahistral Cradle into somehow getting her in a tombstone position. It looks like she's about to hit Saturday Night Fever, but Monet then proceeds to bite, like upside down. She's biting the shit out of Statlander's knee, and then she's able to reverse it into almost like a Hurricane Rana, and that leaves Statlander kind of on the middle rope throat first, like she got set up poorly for the 619, and then from there, Monet kind of rolls her backwards and pulls her leg really far back. So Stat is basically pinned as hard as Monet is capable of pinning her, and that at that point gets the win. And I'll be perfectly honest, if you take the first third of this match out, this was the best match ever. At least between these 2 women. Like, this was easily the best match we've seen from Mercedes since she's been in AEW. And, you know, maybe she was leaning into the fact that people criticize her for using the Meteora excessively, but then using the Meteora excessively is not the sick burn you think it is. You know, same as MJF. So stop that and do more like what the latter 2/3 of this match was. And I think you're well on your way to, you know, not being the worst thing in the women's division. This was actually a really good showing for Mercedes, and Chris Statlander, of course, always looks amazing, and she looked amazing here too. But Mercedes Monet retains her TBS championship.
I felt okay about it. She got her ass whooped, so I was okay. I was like, you know what? You can have it now. You can have the belt.
Yeah, but I do have to say I'm pleased again with the latter 2/3 of that match, sort of making a situation where believably, because Kristad at that point had kind of injured her knee, and Mercedes went to, she had to capitalize on every possible advantage and get it just right, which she did, biting her knee and then kind of choking her on the rope and then getting her with like a really deeply entrenched pin is kind of the only way you make it believable that Stat's getting pinned by this 38 pounder. And they did a good job there, and it was again one of the best matches that I've seen out of Mercedes Moné. I wouldn't say this was match of the night for me, but it was a very good match, and unlike previous pay-per-views where Mercedes has featured, this was certainly not the worst match of the night. So this was a good match, and so I'll give her credit where credit is due. And I can only hope that we continue to see that improvement, and that it wasn't like a one-off just to make the critics shut up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Here's hoping.
But moving on from there, we are brought to match 4 of the night, which is Hangman Page versus Jay White. And boy, howdy. This might have been the one that I legitimately had the hardest time trying to figure out who might win.
Yeah.
I do think that when we were making our predictions early on, I do think I said that I believe Jay White's going to go over because I think Hangman is doing for Jay White kind of a similar thing that Hangman did for Swerve to help bring him up. But I also said I expect it's going to be a hell of a fight, and it was. This was a really solid match between these two men.
It was indeed. Yeah. And I think I said that he
And
was,
I said,
and I said, no, I think I said I felt like Jay White was gonna win, but I also took into consideration the fact that Hangman hasn't technically beaten him clean. Except he's only beaten him once. And I'm like, there's no way that Jay White's gonna win this match.
yeah.
Against Hangman, if Jay's beating him like legit every time, fair and square, and the only time that Hangman has had that win was when he got assistance from
Christian Cage.
Was it Christian Cage?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. So I mean, it was. But yeah, surprisingly, he did. Now I'm not saying it was easy. It was one hell of a match.
Yep.
And just like I like the clever ways that Roderick Strong gets into, can get you into a backbreaker. The Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, yeah.
Yeah, the Blade Runner that Jay White does. I love how he gets into, like, he finds creative ways to get into it.
Yeah, he almost has that out of nowhere power that the RKO does.
Yeah, he does, and that was good. This match, I thought, honestly, that it would be match of the night, and it would have been, but other things happened, guys. We'll get to that. That does not take anything from this match. It was still a good one, and Hangman Page and Jay White are so good together in the ring. They work so well together. I don't know if they're friends in real life or if they hate each other, whatever they have, the chemistry that they have in the ring, it's good. It's so good to see.
Well, and if Hangman is the common denominator, right? Like we were
Mhm.
blown away. Like we often said, I bet you Hangman and Swerve are like the best of friends.
Yeah,
And now you're saying that about him and Jay White because of how well they work together. It's
yeah.
giving me the impression that Hangman is really good to work with and easy to work with and easy to trust to not
That
screw you
yeah.
up.
Hey, that sounds like a champion. That sounds like a superstar to me. Um, and that definitely is what this dude has proven to be so far. Hangman is out here putting dudes over, and giving us like just epic
Ridiculous
matches.
matches. Yeah.
Yeah, and this one. I mean, I don't know if you're gonna do any play by plays or if
I
there's any
will.
that really stand out for you,
Yep.
but this was a really just yet another great match between the two. Honestly, I
Yep.
don't think they've had a bad match.
No, but this one was even one of their better ones.
Yeah,
And getting into kind of the rundown of the match, early on, basically this ends up being ankle versus knee. And
yeah,
it's because early on, Page puts White up and over onto the floor, causing him to land awkwardly on his ankle. And so White starts favoring that ankle. And Page, seeing that, immediately focuses the attack on it. So he's going all in on White's ankle. But you remember, Page still had that messed up knee. Like, it still
mm,
hasn't quite been fully right since his last match with Jay White. So, kind of the back and forth of this match in the broader strokes is that ankle of Jay White's versus that knee of Adam Page's or Hangman Page's. But in between that, we have like some crazy stuff. Like, there's a point where um, I want to say Page hits a huge avalanche fallaway slam on Jay White, and this looked ridiculous. For a second there, I thought it was going to be the avalanche moonsault slam, and that is like just a crazy move. But the avalanche fallaway slam was nasty too, and Jay White just flat backed the shit out of that one. So it just looked like he was like burnt into the ring.
yeah.
There was some trading of like attempts at half and half suplexes, which is kind of White's go-to. Like he's really good at countering into a half and half suplex. Um, let's see. I want to say there was a point where White got him up to the top for a superplex, but after hitting the superplex on Page, his bad ankle made it too hard for him to get the cover. And then as he was trying to recover, Page chop blocked him. So like he's just going in on that ankle. He turns around though, and White responds to the chop block by hitting him with another chop block and some hard back elbows. Page then tries to go for a clothesline. White ducks him and hits him with like the most ridiculous complete shot. Like it fell so fast and just so straight down to the mat that it was ridiculous looking. Like it was so brutal looking. For a guy Jay White's size, he can execute some moves that look ferocious, and his complete shot is one of them. Another one is that huge spinning uranagi he does.
Yeah.
Um, White then converts that into a deadlift German suplex to get a 2 count. And part of the reason he only got a 2 count, they show, is that while he was trying to maintain the bridge, his ankle was shaky, so he couldn't quite post up. And so he wasn't able to hold the bridge for the full 3 count. And then he, tries to recover and charge at Page, who counters with like a just nasty pop up, like out of nowhere, pop up sit out power bomb. And I'm like, wow, that was ridiculous. So these guys are throwing bombs. Like these are huge shots, like avalanche fallaway slams, the complete shot into a deadlift German suplex, and then a pop up power bomb. Like this is the kind of match these guys are having. So
Yeah.
it was a banger. Then I want to say both guys roll out onto the apron, and Page attempts to go for an on the apron dead eye, but instead hits Jay White counters and hits what was it, like a sleeper? No, was it a sleeper or half and half suplex? But it was a nasty like suplex onto Paige on the apron, and Paige just sort of crumples to the floor, and I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, his neck is broken. And he comes out, and it's like, oh man, like while we're sitting here like in awe of the fact that Paige is not dead, what does Jay White do? He walks out onto the outside onto the floor and hits that half and half suplex on him, on Paige on the floor. And then he tries to go for a shin breaker on the ramp, but unfortunately his ankle means that he can't quite get the lift that he wanted. So Paige then like yeets him into the guardrail, and from there he wedges White's ankle between the separation and the barricades and proceeds to like do a huge running boot to the barricade, crushing Jay White's ankle. And then to top that off, Paige locks an ankle lock on the outside, which Paige doesn't usually do an ankle lock, but I guess when your guy's ankle is screwed up, it's the right call.
Yeah.
And he hangs on to it. The whole time, Jay White is sitting here screaming and trying to bounce towards the ring. And he finally gets to the edge of the ring while the ref is at a count of 9. And then both men kind of make it in just in time. And White's starting to recover, and Paige is still on the outside on the apron and sets up for the buckshot, which White then ducks under, and Paige then turns around and throws him in the ankle lock again. And White's then eventually able to get free, and he hits a dragon screw leg whip on Adam Page, and then he hits his like beautiful high angle spinning uranage and gets a 2 count, and Paige counters an attempt at the Blade Runner after that with another ankle lock, but White reverses it into, like, he spins it around into some sort of inverted version of the figure 4. Like, it looked cool, but I wasn't quite sure I made out exactly how that one worked, because it wasn't a standard figure 4. And then Paige crawls his way over to the ropes, and both men kind of get back up, and White tries to go for another half and half suplex, but Paige stomps his feet, like, so while Jay has him from behind, he stomps backwards and hits that injured foot and ankle. And I'm like, well, that was kind of a smart way to get out of that. And from there, Paige then hits a Deadeye and then doesn't try to pin. Instead, he picks him back up and gets another Deadeye. And this only gets a 2 count. So then Paige rolls out to try and get a buckshot, and White counters, looking like he's going to hit the Blade Runner, but Paige slips out of it and counters into an ankle lock. Well, this time Jay White rolls through out of the ankle lock, stands up, and hits the Blade Runner. Like, it was so weird looking the way it went, because he sort of rolled out of it, but then pulled Adam back in towards him and sucked him into the Blade Runner and got, like, just nailed it. And it was such a beautiful execution of, like, the Blade Runner out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it really was this kind of match where these guys were at this point trading blows, and it just came down to whoever hit the next big boss move would win. And that was pretty much the case here when White countered his way into a Blade Runner and quickly got Paige in a 1-2-3. And this was a slobber knocker. Like, both of these men were just going all out on each other. And it was a match where it's like, you in the audience, like, it was exciting, don't get me wrong, but we're like, at a certain point, you're almost fatigued. Like, somebody win, God damn it.
Yeah.
Before someone dies and makes me an accessory. And so
that was the theme, I think, for Full Gear.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, I was so pleased with the way White, like, ended up maneuvering his way into a Blade Runner that, I mean, I was like, oh shit. And so immediately following the win, Jay White is leaving the ring, and he's like, counting the number of times that he still has Adam Page's number, and Adam Page is like so upsetty spaghetti, like nothing but Bantam lamps.
Yeah.
he gets mad, and following the match, he tries to follow Jay White, or well, he does follow Jay White up the ramp and ends up blindsiding him. Like Jay White had turned to walk away, and he only looks back, I guess, when he hears somebody charging up the ramp, but it's not in time, so he gets like just blasted by Hangman. And then Chris Daniels steps out, I guess, presumably in his role as Discount Adam Pearce, and he tries to stop Page. And there's a couple of members of the referees corps out there trying to stop things too. And for his efforts, Hangman Adam Page just straight blasts Christopher Daniels with a right hand that like practically turns him inside out.
And
then
you
he
get
just
a fist.
leaves. Yeah, and then he just leaves, and the announcers are like, "Oh, that's gonna be a fine." It's like, well, I don't think Chris Daniels is gonna care.
Yeah.
He's inside out right now. And that was just a wonderful, violent, like grudge match between Hangman Page and Jay White. And I don't think it's over. Not with the way Hangman went and followed up to lay Jay White out. So we can expect more in the future of that, I think.
Yeah. Still good though. It was a great match.
It was a great match. Moving on from there, we come to one of the bigger matches we were anticipating for the night. It's Kyle Fletcher with the anthropomorphic thumb Don Callis versus Will Ospreay. And this is clearly a grudge match because it's a betrayal of like friends and brothers. And you can tell because Will Ospreay comes to the ring, and instead of being like his nice green and like gold kind of like upbeat kind of a thing, he comes out with kind of a black and darker background on the Titantron, and he's wearing all black. And he storms to the ring, and he doesn't do like where he gets up in the corner or he bounces off the ropes as the crowd's shouting Ospreay. Like they all still shout it, but he's all "Murr, I'm here to kill my former friend." So we're like, uh-oh, Ospreay's pissed. And I guess that makes sense, right? Like storyline wise, he's really upset that Fletcher has stabbed him in the back, literally with like a screwdriver. So it would be weird if Ospreay came out being all like, "Oh, Ospreay," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was actually a really good touch. And then you have Kyle Fletcher come out, and he's wearing like he's wearing a crown, and it says something like King Fletcher. And the crown, I thought at the time when they panned to the side, I was like, that crown is like 2 sizes too little for him. But whatever, like he's trying to do his thing. And boy, do their thing they did. This probably was quite easily, just on pure work rate alone, the match of the night between Fletcher and Ospreay.
Oh my god, absolutely. Like no jokes. No jokes. No cap. This was the match of the night. Like without question.
Yeah. I probably, because there's a lot that happened in this match, so I think I'm probably just going to get into the rundown because this wasn't a whole lot of like, nobody grabbed the mic and talked and said anything. I think Don Callis may have sat down at ringside. But like from bell to bell, like right out the gate, Ospreay like attacks. I want to say he leaps over the steps, turns around, runs back, and springboards off and Hurricane Rana's Fletcher. And then once they make their way back into the ring, Fletcher spikes Ospreay with a huge DDT and proceeds to ground and pound him. Both men head to the apron, and Ospreay looks for Stormbreaker, but Fletcher escapes. Fletcher pulls Ospreay's head and neck into the turnbuckle from the outside. There was a point on the outside where Fletcher hits a brainbuster on Ospreay on the floor. I mean, that was just gross. I mean, I feel like it's pretty nasty when somebody gets a snap suplex or a vertical suplex on the outside, but this was a full-on brainbuster, and I was like, man, that looks like it really did like knock a year or two off of Ospreay's career. Then you have Fletcher in control, and he, is delivering roundhouse kicks to the back and chest of Ospreay. Osprey ends up catching one and delivers a hard chop in return. Osprey tries to handspring kick, but basically, like, you know, where he does the handspring at the ropes, and then he was going to do like the spinning kick, but his shoulder and his neck, especially after that brain buster on the floor, are really bothering him, so he crumbles mid like handspring. And so Fletcher flies in immediately to drop kick him in the arm. Fletcher then puts on, and I hadn't seen Fletcher do this before, but I liked it. He puts a nasty looking like dragon sleeper on Osprey, and kind of is kneeing him from the bottom, and it just looks gross. Like, I'm like, ugh. And Osprey, I think, ends up getting out of it by hitting an around the world DDT, or his attempt at it. But I want to say Fletcher then immediately counters into a huge Michinoku driver for 2. Then he tries to hit a running leg lariat in the corner, but Osprey moves and hits him with a big boot from the apron. And let's see. This was where, outside of the ring, Fletcher is standing. And so Osprey climbs up to the top and hits the most ridiculously twisty dive I think I've ever seen. It's a sky twister press, but it might as well just be called Osprey is the Eye of the Hurricane, because he was spinning so much. And he drills it perfectly. Like he just nails Fletcher with it.
Yeah.
And then I want to say they get back in the ring, and Osprey jumps on the top rope towards a Fletcher that's now in the middle of the ring for a beautiful execution of the phenomenal forearm. Let me just quickly say, Will Ospreay's homage to AJ Styles is really, really good. Like, he hits the phenomenal forearm beautifully, and he hits the Styles Clash beautifully. I hope AJ is like, man, that's cool. Let's see. And then they get into a chop battle, and I think Fletcher's like, chop harder, and Ospreay's like, okay. And then Fletcher counters back with a chop that was like extra super slappy. But then Ospreay counters back with one that's even extra slappier. And it was at this point that Ospreay puts his hands behind his back, trying to be cocky about it. And Fletcher fakes like he's going for a chop, but instead just super kicks Ospreay in the face while he's got his hands behind his back. And I'm like, well, that's how you win a chop battle. Super kicks beat chops.
that checks out. Checks out.
And let's see. I want to say there was a point where Ospreay then recovers because he charges. Fletcher charges at him and he counters. And then Ospreay sets up to go for like an Argentine powerbomb, and he gets it, and it gets a 2 count. And then they're back up, and they're kind of doing a strike battle briefly, which ends in Ospreay hitting that beautiful hook kick where he kicks like almost around the back of the person to kick them in the face. It's crazy good. And then he goes for an Oz cutter, but Fletcher counters with a neck breaker in midair, and it was amazing. Like we were like, holy shit! Like, he just RKO'd his like neck. It was sick. But then he follows that up with like the biggest last ride sit out power bomb, and I'm sure there's a cool name for it, like Shining Star Bomb or something in New Japan, but it was gorgeous. Yeah. And this only results in a 2 count, and I'm like, oh my god, these guys have brought everything and the kitchen sink to hit one another with tonight. So after that, Fletcher executes a running boot in the corner, and Ospreay counters a brainbuster attempt with a Stun Dog Millionaire. And both guys end up going over the top into the floor, and Ospreay tries to hold on but can't. I remember this particular portion. It was a bit. I'm trying to remember what the setup was because Ospreay was weirdly hanging over the rope, and then Fletcher runs at him to try and get him over the rope, but Ospreay catches him with both feet, and it looks like he's trying to almost Hurricane Rana style pull Fletcher over. And it looked to me, and correct me, maybe you saw it differently, but it looked to me like he was hoping to pull Fletcher down and just fluidly catch him into like a tombstone position and then tombstone him.
Yeah.
But
it looked like he slipped or something, or
it looked like
going, like the momentum
yeah.
was too great and he couldn't stop it, and so he
Fletcher basically dives into the ground.
Yeah.
And that part looked brutal because I remember going, "Oh snap!" It looked like a Fletcher just took a header straight into the ground.
Fletcher's dead.
And so Ospreay then picks him up real quick and picks him up for a tombstone in the tombstone position, and then tombstones him on the floor. I mean, so I know it looked to me like they missed like what they were trying to do, but what they ended up with looked like even more brutal because it looked like Fletcher did a header into the ground first before then proceeding to take a tombstone onto the floor. And it was so gross.
Yeah.
I'm like, what more can you do to each other at this point? Like you're at the point where tombstones on the floor, like that's usually the end of life, not just a match.
Yeah, you guys,
could you imagine?
Everything should be done now.
I mean, Kevin Owens is in trouble for the gentlest pile driver to Randy Orton that I've ever seen done. Meanwhile, you guys are like tombstone to the outside. That's just getting started.
He might have fixed his neck. It was so gentle.
Yeah, seriously. But then after the tombstone, Ospreay hits a Phoenix splash on Fletcher after throwing him back in the ring, but it only gets a 2. And Ospreay then tries to go for the hidden blade, but I guess Fletcher, knowing him so well, heard it coming and he ducked under it. And so Fletcher then super kicks Ospreay, and Ospreay, I want to say, like recovers and then somehow sends Fletcher to the ropes, and then on the rebound Ospreay hits the like standing Spanish fly of awesomeness, and at this point Ospreay tries to do the hidden blade again, but this time Fletcher like lariats him out of his boots, and then he takes aim and charges. And Ospreay runs out of the corner and hits, like, I guess a not hidden blade because it was coming at him face first. And he hits him, like, at Mach 5. Like, this was so fast. And he just drills Fletcher with it. But both men are so beat up that Ospreay isn't able to go for the pin. And so from that point, when they both recover and kind of get back on their feet again, Ospreay looks for the Oz Cutter. But, I want to say Fletcher. Let's see. I think he was trying for the Oz Cutter from off the top rope, and Fletcher knocked him down. So he's sitting on the top rope, and then Fletcher heads up, and Ospreay elbows him off. And then Fletcher counters with like a big enziguri. And Fletcher looks for the turnbuckle brainbuster, but Ospreay flips over him, holds on, kind of a la a sunset flip powerbomb, but he hangs on and actually turns it into a Styles Clash, and this leads to a 2 count, and then another running blade to the face, but this is only a 2 count. And so now Ospreay is just kind of punching and kicking the back of Fletcher's head and neck. And he's kind of rolling out to the apron. So, like, at this point, this is the first time I think I've ever seen Ospreay just get frustrated and start punching someone. Yeah. And they head out on the apron, and the ring steps are next to this portion of the apron from earlier in the match. And Ospreay steps out there, and it looks like he's going to try and hit Stormbreaker on Fletcher on the steps. And I'm like, oh, well, this is going to not be a match finish. This is going to be an execution. Yeah. But Fletcher apparently decides he doesn't want to die today and gets free, and then ridiculously, like the most ridiculous thing. He picks up Osprey in a tombstone piledriver position and leaps from the apron onto the steel steps, delivering a tombstone piledriver to Osprey on the top of the steel steps, and both men just tumble off into oblivion at that point. That was the most ridiculous thing I had seen. A man jumping from the apron onto the top of the steel steps and delivering a tombstone. And I don't know whether to feel bad for Osprey or to feel bad for Fletcher's knee, because that is the kind of move that looks like it could legitimately mess up Fletcher's knee forever.
Yeah, real talk.
But it must not have, at least not super bad, because Fletcher was able to drag Osprey back into the ring, and he's talking a bunch of smack to him. He then hits a running leg lariat in the corner and a version of a tombstone, which is done instead of the opponent is facing towards you that you've lifted for the tombstone, he's facing away, and it's a move that Fletcher calls the Grimstone. And what was brutal about this is that Osprey would typically be holding on to the outside of Fletcher's legs or having a grip some way to kind of like help with this move.
Yeah.
And Osprey's arm is so beat up at this point, like because it's just going number and number from all the head damage, that it falls limp. So you basically have Kyle Fletcher deliver this Grimstone, and it just looks like Osprey eats all of it with no kind of way to pad that fall. Yeah. And I'm like, that's it. But Osprey kicks out at like 2.9, and Fletcher's then telling Osprey he's got nothing left, and Osprey's then trying to get into a strike battle, but he can't hit hard with his bad arm, and he can't hit at all with his numb arm. So, like, he tries a couple of strikes, and then Fletcher just lariats him, and then he sort of tosses him in the corner and hits him with a running boot to the back of the head. And then another one to the face of Osprey, and he closes us out with a top top turnbuckle brainbuster, and it's a 1-2-3 to a Will Ospreay, who looked so thoroughly defeated by that point in the match that I was just floored that Fletcher got so definitive and dominant of a win, but he did.
Yeah.
And your winner of this like 10-star match is Kyle Fletcher, who decisively beats Will Ospreay into the floor.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
It was fucking epic. And he looked so damn dominant. 25 years old, this guy.
Yeah, no, Kyle Fletcher. You and I have been talking for a while, like looking at Aussie Open, and since Kyle Fletcher has kind of been doing his solo thing because his partner Mark Davis hasn't been available, I think injured, and we've been watching and we've been impressed as hell with Kyle Fletcher. But this match with Ospreay, this kind of a win is the kind of a thing that shoots you straight to the top. Like, this is Will Ospreay doing for Kyle Fletcher what Kenny Omega did for Will Ospreay.
Yeah.
And Kyle Fletcher rose to the occasion and then some.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, he looked amazing, and I did not know that he was so young to be that good, to be that technically just sound,
gifted.
Man. Gifted, like that's amazing.
Well, and I mean, clearly he and Ospreay are good friends, and Ospreay and him must apparently train together. And not for nothing, back when Aussie Open and Will Ospreay kind of showed up in 2023, like, I remember thinking Aussie Open, like, Kyle Fletcher looked like the weaker link, right? Like, he was just a skinny kid. Well, in the past year or so, he's like 6'4" or 5. Like, he's a tall guy, but he was never that big of a guy. But he's packed on some muscle mass, and now he's getting to where he's almost like he's a big dude like Takeshita.
Yeah.
And in this match, he just threw Ospreay around like it was nothing.
You ain't wrong. Honestly, it was a stomp. But I was so good. I was so happy to see it. I mean, honestly, it was great. It was a great freaking match. Match of the night. I know you've done the play by play, so
easily.
all I can say over and over again is match of the night because it was easily match of the freaking night.
Yeah, I mean, just on pure in-ring work rate and the story being told
Yeah.
in those ropes in that squared circle, match of the night. Like this is the one that everybody will either be pleased or critical that Meltzer is going to give like 6 stars to. I'm going to give it 10. This was one of the biggest like things I've seen in a long time of just pure wrestling like incredibleness.
Yeah.
Both of them were bringing like everything they had to it. Now, Will Ospreay went into this match obviously still kind of injured because, at least in the kayfabe, they're saying, like he showed up with the kinesio tape on his neck and shoulder from Kyle Fletcher drilling him with the Tiger Driver. And he even said in their promo, I can't feel my hand. And so that arm is an issue. I'm not saying it takes away from this match, but it might be the explanation for, inevitably Will Ospreay coming back and kicking the holy crap out of Kyle Fletcher.
Yeah.
And I am here for that match just on its face. Like, all you'd have to say is Ospreay Fletcher, and I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah, what do I sign? What am I doing?
Aren't you curious about the story? Don't care. I know what the match is going to be like. I'm sold.
Yeah, don't care. Let's go.
Yeah. And let me just also add, while we're on the subject, I mean, these two men really brought it, and clearly they're good friends, and this was a match that two guys with great chemistry only they could put on. And at only being 25 years old, Kyle Fletcher rising to this occasion to put on this kind of match with Will Ospreay. This dude is, as Don Callis calls him, the proto star. Like, this dude is meant for great things. I see Kyle Fletcher being an AEW champion easily.
Yeah.
He has really risen, like, meteorically. Like, Kyle Fletcher's rise is starting to feel a little like the meteoric rise in 2023. At the end of 2023 through a good portion of 2024, Swerve Strickland.
Yeah.
And Don Callis has put together a hell of a mean stable. Let me just add to that.
Between
Kunosuke
I can't hate on it.
Kyle Fletcher, Big Brian Cage, Lance Archer. Hoo-wee. Man, this dude has all the big dogs in his yard.
Yeah. Can't hate on it, man. Like he's got the real deal, man. He's got the group. Like between his group and MVP's group.
Oh, the Hurt Syndicate. Yeah.
Yeah, between those two, I'm not sure what Moxley's controlling.
No, exactly, because I think Don Callis has probably one of the most powerful stables, and so does MVP.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing to point out. And maybe we're setting up for Clash of the Factions, because, I mean, if that's the case, Don Callis is well positioned.
Yeah.
But I definitely see this going into Blood and Guts. I absolutely, especially after we saw that 8-man team put together that was Ospreay and Ricochet and Mark Davis and who was the Will Hobbs going against the Don Callis family. I mean, woof, that would be an amazing Blood and Guts match.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'd be here for it.
But I digress. Enough gushing about the match of the night. It was the match of the night, though. Like, super good. Look it up, watch it, whatever you got to do. If you see only one thing, make it that thing.
Yeah, seriously, it was great.
And next, we are brought to Mina Shirakawa, who is on the entrance ramp, and she has set up the champagne celebration for Mariah May. And God bless Mina Shirakawa for saying as many things as she said, like the long reign of Mariah May. with the accent that she has.
I know. They wrong for that.
But she did it. I mean, she did it. And, I know Mina sort of seems like she's a one-trick pony. She comes out and she's like selling her sexuality and she's all, look at my shaky titties. But I think she did real good here, to be perfectly honest. But the way this plays out is Mariah May says she has stepped on and killed this entire division because there's not a single woman that could touch her. And then she turns to Mina and she says, and Mina, I couldn't have done it without you. Time for some champagne. And Mina toasts May and they sort of do the whole like crisscrossed arms drinking of the champagne. And then Mariah says, it's time for celebration. And Mina's like, oh. And she puts her champagne down and she starts to do like a sexy dance. And Mariah sort of like, as she's dancing, she's sort of going down the entrance ramp a little ways. And Mariah sort of steps back a bit and grabs a bottle of wine and is ready to hit her to strike Mina from behind. But Mina picks up that something is wrong and turns around and sees it. And she's like, Mariah. And Mariah spits in her face. And then there's a point where Mina is standing opposite of Mariah. And Mariah still has the bottle that she was going to hit her with, and Mina like roundhouses the bottle out of her hand and it goes off into space, literally. Like I didn't see where that bottle went because she kicked it hard. And then Mina proceeds to spear tackle Mariah May off of the ramp and through a table. And I guess it didn't go fully according to plan somehow. I don't know if Mina put too much of her head into it for the spear. But it looks like Mina quite possibly could have lost a tooth, but certainly busted her lip open when this happened. And she's got, I have since watching Full Gear, a picture on either X or Instagram, I can't remember which, where Mina Shirakawa has like a Flintstone lump on her forehead. So I'm thinking she took too much table to the face in this particular spear. But she comes up from it, like she's able to walk away from it while Mariah is still laying there like, Burr. And she's bleeding from the mouth, and she proceeds to take all of that mouth blood that she is shedding down her chin and smear it all over Mariah May's face. And I think, what did the announcer say? She's partaking of the champion or
what?
Feasting or something.
It was Nigel. He
Nigel said something
that was ridiculous. Like she's feasting on the she's gorging or something.
Gorging on the champion.
She's gorging on the champion.
So, but then she's sort of like, they walk her out and hopefully straight to medical because I really don't think that was intended. I think she ended up eating too much table to the face on that particular spot, but it was a great spot and Mina did fantastic there. Yeah. And so apparently Mariah May has zero friends because even the one that she's been waiting forever to show up, she immediately turns on. So
I guess she just wanted her here so she could beat her to death or something. Man, I don't know. Like I don't know why I don't know. I guess she just wants to. Maybe she wants to be a legend killer.
Something or like she's a black widow, like anybody who gets close time to die.
You're a psychopath, lady. You spent all this time bringing this woman here just so you could try to hit her in the back of the head. You nut. Stop it.
Yeah,
get some help.
Like for 3 weeks trying to sort out her visa, Mina's been coming, and then she finally gets here. And all you do, like you don't even really get to have that much champagne, and before you're trying to hit her with the bottle, and it's like, man, I hope Mina kicks the fucking life out of you.
What is your deal? Like it's nut.
But it was a pretty cool spot, all told. I mean, I'm sorry that Mina Shirakawa actually ate table and has a bloody lip and a Flintstone knot to show for it, but it's the wrestling business, and you rolled with it and turned the blood into like a nasty part of the feature, and it was well done. Well done.
Yeah.
That brings us to our 6th match of AEW Full Gear. I know this is probably your favorite. The TNT Championship with Jack Perry and Daniel Garcia.
Get the hell out of here, Jack Perry!
Yeah, I think I'll let you say what you need to say about this match, because I'd like to preface this with, maybe it was an okay match, but I'm so not personally invested in Jack Perry or Daniel Garcia. I'm not sure I can be unbiased about it.
Well, here's the
So,
thing. Daniel Garcia is an okay wrestler, and he's not my type. Okay, just like Bryan Danielson wasn't my type. Uh, like that on that level. CM Punk isn't my type. Uh, do I think he's bad? CM Punk, yes, but Daniel Garcia, no, no, I don't think Garcia is bad, not at all, and so much so that I can see the fact that he has been working very hard. He has put in the work. He has done the time. There you are. There you are. Found you. Found you. You know. Um. You guys. I'm surprised he didn't say that at all during the match. But I digressify. Anyway, he's not my guy. Okay. But I can see that he's been putting in the work, and I can see that he is a good wrestler, and he does do some moves every once in a while that I enjoy seeing. Um, Jack Perry, however, ever since he left the Jungle Boy shtick, I'm sorry, he's boring as shit to me. He's boring in the ring. He's boring on the mic. He's boring in promos. He's boring when driving his stupid van. He's boring when walking up to the ring with the biggest, dumbest, goofiest mask on his head. He is boring.
yeah, the goat mask is kind of stupid looking.
And well, yeah, it's stupid because his tiny, dumb head is too small for it. And I'm telling you, when he was walking up to the ring, when he faced the stairs and looked down, I fucking about died. I'm like, don't you take it off. You walk up there. You walk up the stairs and that big goofy horse head that you got. Do it. But he took it off. And I'm like, yeah, of course he did, because you know how dumb this looks. And he probably would just fell off those stairs. That would have been into that match before it even began. But I mean, honestly, Jack Perry is boring. I mean, boring beyond belief. He uh, at least when he was Jungle Boy, at least I got some high flying. At least I got some jumping off the top rope, some back flips, something. Now I just get him trying to pretend as if he's the strongest little man alive, and I'm just not here for it. Um,
Yeah.
there's nothing dominant about him. There's nothing, and I know, guys. I know. Uh, listen, I'm old, so so my wording might not be friendly. It is what it is. But there's nothing dominant about him. There's nothing that I see when I look at him that tells me that this is a strong dude that's about to give me a physical challenge. Um, he can't convincingly push someone away from him. He pushes himself away from the person because he can't move them. So you can't get me to then believe that my man's about to pick anybody up and do anything worth anything. And he doesn't. He does lots of holds, lots of kicks, lots of like, I'm gonna hold this arm and kick this rib. He does lots of, I'm gonna toss you in the corner and then run at you with a knee. He does a lot of boring shit. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So when this match popped up, I wasn't really interested. And not only that, but any type of heat that they had on this match, they poured a bucket of ice cold water all over it when they gave us the lamest,
Yeah.
dumbest fucking promo right before it. The last time I saw Jack Perry, he was tied to the most comfortablest chair in in some warehouse or some fucking abandoned building, screaming like he had just seen a spider or some shit. And that's what he was doing. That was the last time I saw him. And now You want me to believe that he's about to give me a menacingly dominant match between the second smallest man in AEW, and I'm supposed to like look. That's the dude he couldn't even fucking push away from him. So
Yeah.
I said all that to say that this was not my favoriteest match, but I can say that Daniel Garcia did what he does. I mean, and I'm sure it was good. I'm sure I was just so half-ass, like, just dead-ass, kind of, sort of, just not really interested. Nothing I saw brought me further into the storyline, further into the match. And I hate to do this, man, but that start that they gave Daniel. First, we knew Daniel was gonna win because they gave him a special opener where he just put on some earphones, and listened to some hip
To
hop
like a
music.
letter from his mom,
That he,
or
and
a
while he listened
voicemail.
to a message from his mom that no mother has ever left her child ever. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Cap. I'm gonna say full cap. Cap.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Um.
My mom was incredibly talkative, and there are times where she used to call me on the phone, and she would leave messages that were 5 minutes long, and none of them were like, I'm really proud of you, and all you have to do is just continue. You're almost there, baby. And when you get there, like my mom
Yeah.
never done.
Instead of being badass, it was emo.
It was just, I'm sorry. Like, and I'm like, wait, he's about to get into a match where he has to physically harm someone, and he's listening to his mom talk about he's the sweetest person, and I know that you want the best for everyone, and you try so hard. And I'm like, man, yeah, that gets me ready to fight. Hold on, let me listen to my
Yeah.
mom talk about how I'm a good boy. Now I'm ready to kill.
Yeah. And if I may,
Yeah.
just to kind of give a rundown of this match, and then I'll give you some of my thoughts on Danny Garcia and Jack Perry, and why I think maybe those two aren't landing for me, and why I think I'd have a hard time being objective. Like the first portion of this match was really, really slow and lame, because it was just Jack Perry continuously getting out of the ring and just not wanting to engage.
Yeah, the
Like
start.
that went on for so long. And so it's almost like the first 5 or maybe even 7 or 10 minutes of the match was that bullshit, and it was just getting really annoying. As an audience member, I know he was trying to frustrate Garcia, but he was really just frustrating us. Now it picked up afterwards. Like there was a portion later where the match started to pick up, and it involved Danny Garcia getting picked up outside of the ring and powerbombed through the timekeeper's table from the announce table, I want to say. But
yeah.
prior to that, this match was kind of like it just was lame.
I also just want to point out that this was right after the amazing match between Fletcher and Ospreay. So this was just the audience. They weren't even in it.
No, yeah, and that may have doomed it too because of where it appeared on the card.
Yeah, they were still reeling from that match.
If I look at it objectively, we have Daniel Garcia getting powerbombed through a table. We have like a butterfly suplex into the turnbuckles by Garcia to Perry. We end up having I want to say, I'm trying to think of the next big move. There was a point where Perry grabbed Garcia almost from one turnbuckle and then runs with him to the other side of the ring and plants him lawn dart style into the middle turnbuckle, and that just looked gross.
Yeah.
But then he follows it up with a basically a KOD. Right? He gets Garcia up on his shoulders and pretty much hits the KOD. I mean, I guess you could call it a sit-out burning hammer, but everyone would know it better as the KOD that Bianca Belair does.
Yeah.
And it didn't even look as good as she does it. But this is still a big move, right? So we've got power bombs, we've got buckle bombs, we've got, a butterfly suplex into the buckles, we've got a sit-out burning hammer. And a little bit later on, um, Perry ends up trying to throw the title at Garcia's feet and wants him to hit him with it, presumably to lure Garcia into a disqualification, because I suppose somehow Garcia just hates Perry so much that he's like wanting to, be baited into that. But then Garcia gives the belt to the referee instead, but behind the ref's back, Jack Perry hits a low blow on Garcia.
And then tells him, I told you you're not ready, because he didn't hit him with the belt. What?
Yeah. And so from there, we're thinking, okay, well, that's how he's going to win this match, right? But it only gets a 2 count, and then Perry goes to try and pick Garcia up, and Garcia was playing possum and flips him over on his back into a jackknife cover for another 2 count. And then Garcia picks up Perry and hits him with a trapped pile driver, like basically crosses Perry's legs and pile drives him. This also only lands a 2 count. And then I want to say, to finish the match, we get a jumping pile driver by Garcia. And from there, he gets into a dragon tamer. And at that point, Perry taps. And so if I recount those high spots, those all sound like great spots, right? So that's why I'm saying I think I'm biased against these two gentlemen, mainly because Jack and Daniel are both like 205 cats, like at that, like 205 live. Like they're neither one of them break 200 pounds. So a lot of what they're doing to me just doesn't have the same impact. But on top of that, you had like you said, Daniel Garcia came out listening to some emo message from his mom.
Man, it was just, it took me right out.
Then prior to that, they killed that cool promo where, they were driving off with Jack Perry strapped to the hood. They absolutely murdered the coolness factor of that by having Garcia like do little but like take a tire iron to the scapegoat mobile and then walk away. And it's like, dude, that, like, so you had said it. They poured ice water on any heat going into this. Daniel Garcia comes across as like an emo twat, and Jack Perry is confused. He's a sub 200-pound wrestler who wishes he could power wrestle, but he can only do that to somebody who is equally tiny.
Yeah.
And so, if I'm being objective, just looking at like things like being powerbombed through a table and, the other moves and the pile drivers and whatnot, this should, by all accounts, have been a banger of a match, but it really just fell flat with me because I'm just not that into Jack Perry and Daniel Garcia. And like you pointed out, it's on the end of having just watched Fletcher and Ospreay tear the roof off the joint. So
seriously,
everyone is deflated from that adrenaline rush. So this just didn't, it should have been good. And maybe somebody who's more objective about Jack Perry and Daniel Garcia would see it as
and
very good.
That's fair because I honestly I can't help but be a tad bit biased here. I like these two guys just aren't my favorites at all. And then they even with that, I was still here for it. I was still here for whatever they were trying to tell me, whatever story. And when Jack Perry literally just walked up and kidnapped another grown-ass man, I thought, okay, let's go.
Yeah, but then it piffled.
And he's got him chained up, and I'm like, oh man. And then here comes Daniel Garcia. There you are, found you.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, all right, you found him, my guy. Calm the fuck down, right? But then they strap him to the hood of the car. I'm like, oh my god. They're driving off. It looks fucking metal as shit, right? They could have stopped it there. They could have stopped.
They should have stopped it there. That would have been cool.
I would have been so here for this match, man. Honestly, they were selling me. But then the whole like and like I said, I think in a previous podcast, whenever Matt Menard was asked about it, whenever he was doing commentary. And, I don't know, Excalibur or Nigel or whomever looks over at him and goes, man, speaking of which, the last time we saw Jack Perry, you guys had him strapped to the hood of his car. What happened there? What Matt Menard should have said was, I don't want to talk about it, guys. All right, let's just change the subject. All right, I don't want to talk about it.
Or better yet, either have waited for that spot to be just prior to Full Gear where they're driving him off with the thing and not had a second spot before Full Gear where they nuked it.
Yeah.
What would have been cool is if we'd cut from the scene where they drove off with him, and then at Full Gear, they literally cut to the back where they're driving in, and this is Jack Perry arriving, having been tied to this car and presumably driven from one venue to the next for however many days, and so he's all blah on the hood.
That would have
And
been
Matt
awesome.
and Daniel unchain him and drag his ass to the ring and throw him in, and then
And then the
Garcia
match
proceeds
begins.
to destroy him and
That's
take
right.
his little belt and be like, "Think twice before you fuck with me, Jack Perry." And then he leaves, and that would have been like Daniel Garcia would have been metal, Matt Menard would have been metal. Everybody would have been thrilled to see Jack Perry get destroyed so badly.
There you are.
And you would have
beat you.
Had a similar result, which is the new TNT champion, Daniel Garcia. It's just that he would have looked.
I'm the champion.
He would have looked hardcore AF if they'd have done it that way instead of whatever fucking emo gay shit this was.
That would have been great. And before somebody out there goes, have him strapped to the hood of the car for like a week. That's not very realistic. It's wrestling, bro. Like they tied a man to the hood of his car to begin with. Okay? And then they have video footage of it. So can we stop with reality, please? Stop.
It really would have been a lot more hardcore if they had done something like that instead of whatever they chose to do here.
That's all I'm saying. It just fell flat. That's all the point that I'm trying to make is for me, it fell flat. So by the time this match shows up, I am less than caring about it. On top of that, and I'll also be honest, I didn't really care about Mina Shirakawa and Mariah Maisel segment either, because my head was in the clouds still because of the match between Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. It was a phenomenal match. So I kind of feel bad for anything that came immediately after.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw it all, and I still was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. But in my head, I was still so into match 5 that everything else that came after, until I think Takeshita and Ricochet, which was the next match, came up, I was kind of head in the clouds. And when I saw that it was Jack Perry and Daniel Garcia, I started to come down a little. But I felt very negatively towards it because of the last promo that I saw, promo that they cut for it.
Yeah.
And then the opener that Daniel Garcia gave us with this soft hip hop type jazz mix with his mom talking on a phone call with the fakest sounding. I just wrote this down and I'm reading this word for word message that turned me off to the match, man. And all I could think was, we just watched Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher destroy this arena, and you fucking assholes are coming out here with this slap fight.
Yeah,
that's all I could think. And you just read it off. There were some good moves, and I just still, but I'm saying that I say all that knowing that I am very, very much. I'm tainted in this because I just don't like either one of those that much. I'm not that into them, and the little heat that they did give me, they took away from me tenfold. So I just wasn't there for it.
Yeah. No, I think that certainly didn't work in their favor. So I think if I'm being objective, this would be like maybe a 3-star match. Like, it was good. It was a good enough match.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm being objective, my only real criticism is a slow start.
Yeah.
As far as the in-ring, right? Like we've discussed Daniel Garcia and how they kind of could have done better with the build-up, but just from the time this match actually began, my only real criticism was the real slow start. Like, it didn't pick up until mid to later, and it's like the first 5 or almost 10 minutes maybe of the match just seemed really, really slow, or maybe it seemed longer because it was really boring. Yeah. And then it picked up, and so I think if I was being fair, I would say this was a very good match, or at least a good match. I'm just not that into Danny Garcia and Jack Perry. There it is. And I mean this was a title change too. I mean, should be up on it, right? But I'm kind of meh about it personally. But you've heard the
Also, the belt's
descriptions.
ugly.
If anyone is, I'm sorry. Oh
Also,
yeah,
that belt's ugly.
the belt is ugly. But anybody who's a Danny Garcia fan or a Jack Perry fan, I'm sure you exist. I'm sorry I can't be more objective. These guys just aren't for me. But they did put on a good match. Like this wasn't like a terrible match.
Yeah.
And maybe the positioning, like you said, like on the end of Osprey Fletcher, like oof, whoever has to come after that immediately, like because the crowd is deflating and you could hear it. Like Newark was very loud when they wanted to tell somebody "fuck you," and here, like it was crickets. Like and this is Garcia's like a hometown guy in New Jersey, and the
He is,
crowd was
isn't he?
barely, yeah, the crowd was barely popping for him. So I think there was a point where Danny Garcia was like he looked frustrated and pumped his hands like, where's the crowd at? And they just weren't there.
Yeah.
But moving on from there, we come to match 7 of the Eternal Full Gear. AEW International Championship, the reigning and defending champion being Konosuke Takeshita versus Ricochet. And this was another really solid match. Ricochet was taking it to Takeshita, hitting him with like all the craziness that you expect out of Ricochet. Like there's a reason Ricochet says he's out of this world, and it's because I think he can defy gravity. There was a beautiful there was a move where he ran out towards Takeshita and he does like a backflip into like a moonsault, but it's like sideways, and that looked cool. And there was a point where Ricochet landed a 450 early on, and I want to say it was around this time that Don Callis, who had been at the announce desk, ends up heading to the ringside area. Takeshita ends up catching Ricochet, who is running at him with a massive, like monstrous blue thunder bomb. And let's see. There was another one where I want to say Takeshita attempts a German suplex and Ricochet bounces out. And Ricochet tries to go for I want to say he tries to roll up Takeshita, but Takeshita grabs hold of him and wheelbarrow German suplexes him, and that was kind of cool looking. Ricochet ends up getting the Spirit Gun, which is his version of the Hidden Blade, off, but they're both kind of beat up, so he can't really get the pin. And then I want to say there was a point where Ricochet went up to the top, but he got distracted by Don Callis, and so Takeshita trips the legs out and goes up top and then hits a just disgusting looking. I remember seeing it too, and I was like, ooh, what a gross landing. He hits an avalanche release German suplex on Ricochet, and looking at it at the time, I thought Ricochet took way too much of that on like his head, neck, and shoulder, but it didn't keep Ricochet from continuing. But it looked ferocious. And then Takeshita, drills him with another massive lariat and goes for a pin, but only gets 2. And he goes for a power drive knee, but only gets another close 2. Takeshita, let's see. There was a point where Takeshita was heading up to the top, and Ricochet runs up and Hurricane Rana's him off of the ropes. And then as Takeshita is getting righted after that, he gets drilled with a poison Rana. And then after that, Ricochet heads to the top and hits like a gravity-defying shooting star press. And I was like, oh, okay, so is that it? Because usually the shooting star press is a finisher, but he only gets 2. And so then Ricochet is attempting Vertigo, and I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, can you even get Takeshita up for Vertigo? Because Takeshita's too tall for you. I mean, at least it looks that way to me. I mean, I could be wrong. But Takeshita reverses Vertigo into like an overhook tombstone. You know, the one where he kind of gets both legs under his arms and drills him with that, and that gets. I think that doesn't get a count for Takeshita, and then Ricochet gets back up and hits an Enziguri on Takeshita, and then grabs him up for a twisting brainbuster. And then I want to say Ricochet tries to head up top again, and Takeshita, meets him up there with like a knee to the face. And then Takeshita grabs hold of him and hits this massive avalanche Falcon Arrow. And, that might be the Burning Thunder Fire or whatever he's trying to call it these days. But it was a huge avalanche Falcon Arrow, and it looked brutal. And with that, Takeshita scores the win. Clean. Like, Don Callis barely interfered.
Yeah.
And this was another good match. It wasn't quite like Fletcher Ospreay, but it was good. I would say this is 3.5 to 4 stars easy. It was a solid match between Takeshita and Ricochet, and it's another one though where like the Don Callis bad guys beat their opponent clean. So now we've got Ospreay and Ricochet both losing straight up to members of the Don Callis family. That's got to be building to something, don't you think?
Yeah, I feel like there's a change happening in AEW. And
it's the Death Riders.
It's definitely not the Death Riders.
Definitely not the Death Riders.
Definitely not them. But I feel like there's something a brouhaha, and I'm here for it. It's just to reiterate, it's not the Death Riders. But yeah, this was a nice big win for Takeshita.
Yeah.
And Ricochet didn't look like a slouch. I think that was his first loss.
It was his first loss. Yep.
But yeah, I think it was the right call. I would have been, I think, upset if Takeshita had lost that belt. Just his first defense of it, I think.
Actually, I think it's like his third, but he's not.
Third?
Had
Oh,
it
you're
very
right.
long.
You're right. It is like his third. Yeah. But it hasn't been long. You're right. Since he's had the belt, and he is one deserving of a damn belt. So let it sit there for a little bit. Give him 3 or 4 more matches, and then we'll talk.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. For the same reasons that like Private Party, I feel it was right that they didn't lose here either, right? Because I think it's like I think legitimately it's like Private Party's first defense of those tag belts since they've been champions, and it's early since Konosuke finally got a belt, and we'd been waiting for Konosuke to get a damn belt forever because that dude's putting in the work. So I'm with you. I fully agree with you. It would have been a bad call to strip Konosuke off of that belt just yet.
Yeah. I think So that's how I feel about that. The next match, I do. It's match 8, right? Swerve Strickland, with Prince Nana versus Bobby Lashley with the Hurt Syndicate. And I think the Hurt Syndicate at the time was just MVP, right? I think that's the only one that had come out.
No, because I'm inclined to say that Benjamin was there too. Because I think there was a point in that match, if I recall, where Benjamin gets caught, kind of like trying to grab Swerve,
right? Yeah,
and the ref ejects him, and Prince Nana's like, "Get out of here! It serves you right." We're like, okay, cool.
Yeah. This match was surprisingly, in my opinion, if we can talk about it now, if we were ready to move on, I feel like it was pretty short. And again, I'm not dissing Bobby Lashley, but it was more of the same, of Bobby Lashley, he was he looked a little more brutal in his delivery. which I would assume from Bobby Lashley because now he can be, And I'm pretty sure Swerve told him, let's not do any of that holding back business. Let's really get this match going. But I feel like this was a pretty dominant match, for Bobby Lashley, given Swerve's track record. I was a little, and I kind of agree with some of the comments online. I kind of feel like this was a surprisingly short, dominating match from Bobby Lashley when it came to Swerve. I thought that there would be more of a little back and forth because there was plenty of that with him and Benjamin. So I was just a little shocked at how dominant Bobby Lashley came off.
Lashley was fairly dominant kind of early going, and then Swerve got a turnaround for a little bit where he actually was able to land like the house call and Swerve stomp.
Yeah.
But ultimately, yeah, this was Lashley's match. I haven't seen Swerve so bodied because Lashley's just so much. I mean, there's weight classes matter, guys, and Lashley is here to freaking kick ass. I mean, it wasn't a terrifically long match. There was some mild interference from Shelton Benjamin when Lashley whipped Swerve to the ropes. Benjamin reached out to try and trip Swerve, and the ref sees it, so he gets ejected. Yeah. And then Lashley drills Swerve with the one-armed spine buster that he likes to do. That looks a lot like a chokeslam, except it's like he plants his hand in the middle of their body and not around their neck.
Yeah.
Lashley then proceeds to set up some steel steps on the outside, but Swerve catches him, throws him into him repeatedly, and bounces his head off of him. And then they end up on the apron, and I remember this one. Ooh, this was a gross one. Swerve goes for a DDT on the apron, and I don't know if this was intentional or a miscue or what, but Lashley like misses the apron and just does a dive to the floor.
Yeah.
And we were looking at that and we're like, oh shit. Lashley stumbles to his feet and he's kind of up against the announce tables. And remember, they had set, like I said, they took the steel chairs, so they're still right there. And you've got Nana sitting there shouting at Swerve, calculate it, boss, calculate it. Like, do the calculus. And so Swerve runs, jumps off of the steel steps as Lashley is standing in front of, I guess, the Spanish announce table. It's whatever the backup announce table is. Yeah. And he swerve stomps Lashley like in the chest through the table.
Yeah. And then
dude, wow.
Oh yeah, through a table. And then back in the ring, freaking house call.
And then the swerve stomp. Yeah.
Swerve stomp. So guys, it's not that he didn't do the work, okay? Swerve like swerve stomp through a table, house call, swerve stomp again. No, does not work.
No. And I mean, at that point, what more can Swerve do, right? Like, because Swerve has hit him with a DDT that basically went all the way to the damn floor. Swerve stomped him through a table, threw him in the ring, hit him with the house call, and got up on the top rope and hit him with the swerve stomp. And Lashley still didn't go down. And so they roll to the outside, and Lashley rolls out, and Swerve follows. MVP proceeds to get in his way, and Swerve sort of just stares at MVP like menacingly until MVP backs off. And but that bought Lashley the time he needed to kind of recover enough that when Swerve moves past MVP to Lashley just grabs hold of him and throws him with an overhead belly-to-belly suplex onto the floor that looked gross.
Yeah.
Like Brock Lesnar levels of gross.
Yeah, Brock Lesnar shivered.
And
wherever he was like, woo.
Yeah, seriously, like homage to Brock Lesnar is going on tonight. Like with this big suplex and the F5 that Chris Statlander threw. That's it. Brock Lesnar to AEW.
Printed. Oh man.
Man. Yeah. But That wasn't enough. Like the belly to belly to the floor prejudicially, right? Like this wasn't like one of those ones where it's like I'm gonna go slightly softer because I know we're on the floor. No, this was like full on. Like screw you, Swerve. I hope your spine dies. And then Lashley sort of gathers up Swerve, who I'm trying to remember. Did Lashley gather him up, or did he work like kind of crawl his way over to the guardrail? And as he's trying to get up and leaning against the guardrail, Lashley spears Swerve through this guardrail.
Yeah.
And Swerve is like, back. He's dead. And so then Lashley, after after Lashley recovers from that, because it didn't do him any favors either, he rolls Swerve back into the ring and drills him with another spear. And, you would think at that point he could go for the pin, but no. Lashley wants to be certain and then proceeds to pick up and put Swerve into the Hurt Lock, and Swerve is judged as passing out at that point, and Bobby Lashley wins decisively, dominantly, ridiculously versus Swerve. I mean, just destroyed Swerve. I mean, it would be like if Swerve Strickland from NXT were facing Bobby Lashley main roster at WWE. This is that kind of an ass whooping. It was frightening to see Swerve get bodied like this.
Yeah. Yep. But I mean, I the storytelling is good. I mean, tell me that you need a faction without telling me that you need a faction.
Seriously, and you know how you just said earlier that you think that you're feeling some kind of change in AEW that is definitely not the Death Riders. How do you feel this factors into that? Because this does feel like, oh man, because Swerve is the top of the card and Lashley just bodied him. I mean, so where do we go with that? Like, what am I supposed to interpret that as? And where does that leave Swerve?
I don't know. Like I am, I don't know. I did not, to be perfectly honest, I didn't expect for Lashley to win so
decisively and with no real interference from the Hurt Syndicate.
No.
I mean, outside of Benjamin attempting to trip him, which didn't really do that, there wasn't much interference. Although maybe you could make the argument that MVP stepping in front of Swerve and Swerve taking so much time to sort of like eyeball stare him down was where the match was lost. So maybe enough interference, but I really didn't feel like Lashley wasn't going to do what he did if Benjamin and MVP hadn't even been out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and the insult to injury doesn't end there, because Shelton Benjamin immediately comes back now that the match is over and throws Prince Nana in the ring, and Lashley proceeds to throw the Hurt Lock on Prince Nana.
Not the national Nana treasure.
He did. He's now going to swerve when he walks. And basically, the Hurt Syndicate are completely dominant here, leaving both Swerve and Nana laying in the ring, just demolished.
Yeah.
And oof. Like, I did not expect the burial of Swerve Strickland here.
Yeah. And honestly, if I were to do things a bit differently this night, I think I might have put this match maybe ahead of the match between Will Ospreay, or maybe ahead of the match between Jack Perry and Daniel Garcia. I mean, something needed to kind of like it was just, this was too much of a drop in the vibe and the energy, like between match 5 and match 6. If that makes, I'm not sure if I'm explaining what I'm trying to explain correctly, but this was like,
I'm not sure where you could have placed some of these matches any differently.
Or maybe
I mean, the existence of Ospreay and Fletcher was just going to make everything that came after it struggle.
That's true, but I mean, I look at the match between Takeshi and Ricochet, and I'm like, that was a banger of a match.
Yeah.
And I can say so objectively, right? And same thing with Swerve Strickland and Bobby Lashley. It was a good match. I don't know, man. I just feel like if they had put that, because I mean, this match was already skating uphill, man. You know, and then you give us that weak promo. You leave us with that. That's the taste in our mouths when we get into this match, and then you put that match right after the banger, like the match of the night that Fletcher and Osprey gave us. I just
Yeah.
feel like they were out to get them, man.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but with regards to like Swerve and Lashley, if I'm
Yeah,
surprised by anything, like I'm surprised that this wasn't more of an even match because Swerve is
yeah,
like the top guy, has
the
been the top
guy.
guy
Yeah,
for a minute. Like I know he doesn't have the belt right now, but the meteoric rise of Swerve Strickland and his, he was shiny, and for Lashley to basically, like, this was a long play squash match for Lashley versus their top guy.
real talk.
And so that's kind of surprising, like
Yeah,
just how dominated by Lashley Swerve was.
yeah,
And I'm curious to see where they go from here because I feel like it I feel like you obviously put Lashley over, but you kind of buried Swerve here, I think. So because it was just such a beating. Like this was a beating on the order of like John Cena getting in the ring with Brock Lesnar. I keep saying Brock Lesnar, guys. I don't know why, but it's what comes to mind here. Like that time that Brock Lesnar basically just did like 16 German suplexes to John Cena in a squash. At like one of the, I mean, it wasn't peak John Cena time either. Like John Cena just ate the squash match. And this feels kind of like that. Like it's a little awkward how badly you squashed Swerve Strickland here.
yeah. So I don't know. I'm looking to see where this goes, but I was very surprised by this match. Again, it wasn't a bad match, just surprising. Like it was a surprising stomp. Yeah,
Yeah, and I can understand Swerve wanting to put over the new guys, particularly Bobby Lashley, but this might have been a bit much. And I sure don't want to set the precedent that anybody who is a big name that comes over from WWE suddenly can just squash the biggest of the big that's at AEW. That doesn't look good. That's not a good look. Um, but yeah, I'm a little surprised this wasn't a more competitive match. That this was so much just Lashley killing Swerve.
yeah, yeah. Super surprised, but yeah.
But moving on from there, we come to the final match of the night. AEW World Heavyweight Championship, Jon Moxley, the reigning and defending champion, versus Orange Cassidy. And we sort of see this as Moxley's arriving in the parking lot with Claudio, their driver, who is now sporting a lovely wife beater just to complete the look.
Ridiculous.
And he hops out of the truck, and Pac is wearing his gear. So I don't know why Pac doesn't have a match, but I guess you're telegraphing that he intends to wrestle at some point in this evening. But it appears that the World Heavyweight Championship is in the briefcase. I guess we'll never know. It was handcuffed to Marina Shafir.
For some fucking reason, it's a belt. Jesus Christ, guys.
And she sort of hands it over to the ref and undoes the handcuff. And I'm like, okay, but at no point does he actually open it and show us that the belt's inside. So what was the point?
Yeah, I don't know.
But you kind of got like it feels like it's a big deal. They're trying to do these special intros, and Cassidy interrupts Moxley's introduction by coming out and immediately starting hot. Like he just starts wailing on Moxley with like a trio of orange punches and a suicide dive to the floor. And I appreciate the energy. And it's different when Roman Reigns does it. And let me explain why. Not because Roman Reigns is bigger, not because he's stronger, but because Roman Reigns' signature move is the Superman punch. It's not his finisher. However, the orange punch is Orange Cassidy's finisher. And so it's not weird when Roman does it 3 times to somebody and they get back up. It is weird when Orange uses his finisher 3 times, followed by a suicide dive, and Moxley is just kind of parading around like he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
You're burying your finisher.
Yeah.
So we end up with a pretty good match going on right here between Moxley and Cassidy. They're really going after it. There's a point, and I'm trying to remember where that Cassidy gets busted wide open. I think I want to say that
Early on with the stairs.
I think it was a stair shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a point where Cassidy. I'm trying to find or remember where that happened at, but I want to say that he gets driven into the stairs like head first somehow.
Yeah, running boot to the face, but then he did some kind of stump, like a curb stomp to his face on the stairs.
Yeah,
And then
yeah, that's
he
it.
did
Yeah.
And then he did some right hands to his forehead, and then they
And
showed
that's where
that
you've
Cassidy.
got Cassidy,
Yeah.
being juicy.
Yep.
So Cassidy immediately is participating in this match from this point on, wearing the crimson mask. And just dripping blood everywhere. Surprisingly, it wasn't Moxley who bled this. You know, he hasn't done that in a minute. I guess the criticism of him bleeding all the time finally set in with him.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Stop bleeding, you weirdo.
But I want to say, you know what it was? Is there was a double arm DDT on the top of the steel steps too, and I think that's really where it got juicy for him.
It got extra juicy, and that was well, hold on, because he did a DDT twice on the stairs. So, either case, he was bloody early on and remained bloody.
Yep. And there is a point where Moxley mounts Cassidy in the corner and bites his bloodied face, and it's like, ew. And then he hits a Gotch-style pile driver, and that only gets a 2 count. Cassidy rolls outside, and I want to say that Moxley wants to try and set something up on the Spanish announce table. But as it's going on, Cassidy then goes for the eyes of Moxley, but Moxley doesn't care and sends Cassidy into the steel steps head first. At this point, Cassidy is bleeding profusely. That's a new word I just made up.
I like it.
And Moxley's just kicking him in the face over and over. And then there's a point where I think he tosses Cassidy into the barricade. But Cassidy is like challenging Moxley to come on, and he continues to take his beating. And then there's a point where they trade off the back scratchies.
Yeah.
Like, I want to say Moxley digs his nails into the back of Cassidy, and Cassidy then returns the favor. And this is after they've gotten back in the ring and they're up kind of on the top rope. And Cassidy comes off the top rope, but Moxley catches him with an anti-air elbow to the ribs. And I remember seeing that move, and I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
Because he just straight, like, forearmed him in the ribs as he was coming down. And I was like, ooh, that's a different anti-air, and it looked gross.
Yes. Orange Cassidy was like, Cassidy, yes. And Moxley was like, Cassidy, no.
Yeah. And then I think Moxley gets a guillotine choke on Cassidy, but Cassidy makes it to the ropes. And it looks like Moxley's trying to go for a pile driver off the middle rope, but Cassidy, shucks him off and instead connects with a diving DDT, and then he follows that up with a satellite DDT. And then Cassidy comes out with an attempt at an orange punch, but Moxley hits him with a cutter, like, from out of nowhere. Like, man, Randy Orton would have been proud. Like,
yes.
Like Cassidy's like, I'm gonna orange punch you, and then suddenly he's like, why am I tasting Matt? And
oh my god.
and then it looks like Moxley's trying to go for the Death Rider, but Cassidy instead slips out and slaps him in the face. And then they're kind of going back and forth in the ring. And Orange decides he's going to do some orange kicks, like the little tippy-tappy kicks. And I want to say, was this the point where he planted the hands in the pocket? But
It might have
I think
been.
I'm not sure. I think he hits the orange kicks and then he hits an orange punch for a 2 count. And then Moxley, I think at one point turns that around and hits him with the King Kong lariat, and Cassidy is literally like turned inside out. But then Cassidy like powers up. And so he's back up and he hits an orange punch followed by a beach break. And I'm like, oh, snap. This looks like it's going to be it, right?
Yeah.
No, it's just
Nah.
a 2 count. And now Pac and Claudio are making their way to the ring. And we're like, because we know what's about to happen now. And that's a shame because these two dudes were going after one another.
Yeah.
So anyway, both Orange and Moxley get on. Let's see. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. Actually, I think Pac and Claudio get up on the apron, but the conglomeration come out and they end up fighting Pac and Claudio kind of to the back. And Rocky Romero is out here, and I want to say he comes off the top with a plancha to everyone. And then Marina, like everyone's attention is turned here because it's happening near the entrance ramp. And Marina Shafir kind of comes into the ring from the other side with the briefcase, but Willow Nightingale comes charging out of the back, like jumps into the ring, and I want to say spears the shit out of Marina Shafir. It was a great spear, and like speared her out of the ring. And so now Cassidy has the briefcase, and he beans Moxley in the face with it, but it only gets a 2 count. And then I want to say Moxley is kind of tucked off into the corner, and the ref comes to check on him, and that allows Wheeler Yuta to sneak into the ring and hit a Psycho knee on Orange Cassidy, and like he jumps into the ring, hits it, and slides back out of the ring before the referee notices. And at that moment, Moxley pops up and hits a Death Rider on Cassidy and gets the 1-2-3. And so your winner and still world heavyweight champion is Jon Moxley. It was a great match. I don't know how you're supposed to be selling me this idea that Moxley is the baddest dude on the planet and the Death Riders are the baddest asses on the planet when, you know, they have to cheat their asses off to beat 98 pounds soaking wet Orange Cassidy. I mean, no ding on Cassidy. He's a tough competitor, or at least that's how he's been booked and billed in AEW. So I get it. He's not going down without a fight. But I mean, if you compare it, it's like Moxley like no-sold way more finishers and moves that should have finished it than, you know, Cassidy getting hit with a Psycho knee and a Death Rider. I mean, for fuck's sake, Orange Cassidy straight up beamed Moxley with the briefcase, you know? So Moxley got the foreign object, which should be like way worse than just a standard finisher. And then it was a Psycho knee from freaking Wheeler Yuta. Come on. And then one Death Rider from Moxley was it. That was it. And Cassidy's like, Burk. So, but look at how much it took to get Orange Cassidy there. You know, like everybody in all of the Death Riders had to somehow get in there and cheat.
Yeah.
So it's not really, I mean, you're conveying heel, but you're not conveying badass. That's for sure, right? Like this is some bitch move shit, not like, oh, I'm the baddest dude ever. So I'm not sure what they're trying to do here with Moxley and the Death Riders, but it was a decent enough match. I mean, Cassidy and Moxley were going at it pretty good. I think I would have been happier with some kind of different finish than that one, I guess. I don't know. And it felt weird that, like, Moxley was able to shrug off everything and no sell it, but, like, one, you know, a Psycho knee and a Death Rider just was the end of Orange Cassidy. It was, brr, you know, so I don't know. So it was an okay enough match. I don't know that I think it was better than some of the other matches on the evening for all this build-up and all this hullabaloo. And I definitely wasn't super thrilled with the cheat finish. but I guess it was like 3.5, maybe. I would give it. It was okay.
Yeah. Um, I don't know if I could fairly give an assessment of anything the Death Riders or Moxley is doing right now. Just because I'm so not into it, and I'm so immediately turned off by the aesthetic, knowing what it is, that I'm just not interested.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to get past it. I mean, it just is. And I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad for loving. You love Moxley, great. I used to love Moxley. That's why this is bothering me so much. Um, and the same thing with Claudio, like, and same thing with Pac. These are Pac is probably one of my favoriteest wrestlers. Just wrestlers, whatever. You know
Yeah.
the word I'm
No, the
saying.
Bastard Pack is outstanding.
Yeah, he just is. So, you know, I'm just so turned off by this storyline that it's just really hard for me to even get into it. So, I mean, just objectively, I can tell you that it was a good match. But I'm so bummed by where they're going with this that it's kind of losing sight for me. And not only is this a bad angle, I think, but it's one not being done well at all.
Yeah.
So this is something that like, it could take anything nowadays for somebody, anything taken out of context, what, it doesn't matter, anything for somebody to just start posting like shit, posting online, and basically trying to ruin someone's life because of something they see 30 seconds of, right? So it's real
Yeah.
easy for
Yeah.
somebody to just go dummy stupid off about what's happening with this particular storyline, and it could be an overnight viral shit can that happens because of this. Now imagine getting shit canned for this. I mean, it's not even well executed. Imagine this is your livelihood and you get shit canned because you did a shitty job at pretending to be questionably racist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, honestly, at this point, I can't imagine they haven't heard and don't see that the Death
Yeah,
Riders look very much like a white supremacist group,
right.
and they
So
should totally hard left away from that. Like hard left, hard right, any direction you need to go that's
any
opposite of
direction.
that right now. Because I really don't think that's necessary in this political climate, and I don't think it'll buy you the kind of heat you're looking for. Like, if you're trying to
No.
be edgy, you're going to fail because it's going to be go away heat. Like, fuck off.
Yeah. This is the wrong kind of edgy, I think. But
Yeah,
I mean, what do I know? It could be selling like hotcakes. It could be flying off the shelves. People could be eating it up. You know?
yeah. I'm not that. I choose to look past that, and I'm trying to judge it based on like whether or not they're getting their message across clearly and whether or not they're looking right. And
No.
for me, where this fails is instead of making Moxley look like a tough guy, and he's
Yes.
generally supposed to kind of look that way. Like, this is the guy that walks over to Japan and takes their championship belts and
Yes.
beats the living crap out of CM Punk's. And now he comes back and he can't even have a straight match with Cassidy, and he's acting like he's scared.
No.
And, this problem does not extend to the Bastard Pack and to Claudio. Both of those men look strong. Like,
Yeah.
they get in the ring and they handle their business. Moxley, not as much. Moxley here, like, had a hell of a match, and Cassidy was taking it to him, and eventually he had to cheat his way out of it. And this doesn't work for me on a couple of levels because, one, I don't think John Moxley needs to do that, and two,
Yeah.
it doesn't help him look less like a bitch that he did do that.
No,
So
not at all.
you have this guy who's walking around like he's the baddest man on the planet, because it's like basically tough guy McTough guy is John Moxley's character right now.
Yeah.
And but then his behaviors undermine him trying to even do that. And then the confused, whatever the intention is of the Death Riders, is not mysterious. It's just confused,
Yeah.
and it's all landing not so well. Like whatever this Death Riders group is trying to achieve, it's not really working. And it needs to figure out what it's trying to be and where it's trying to go and how it's trying to portray itself sooner rather than later. And I mean, I think I've said that now for weeks, so I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here. But as it pertains to this particular match, I really hate seeing what is an otherwise good match get ruined by cheaty bullshit. And so I'm a little disappointed because of that. And I'm a little disappointed because I don't think Moxley needs to resort to that. Like, he was like a really badass guy who was fighting badass people and doing badass things until this, which is where he should be the most badass. And instead he's coming across as like the weakest link.
Yeah. And now he has a female bodyguard who quickly ushers him out of danger.
Yeah, it's starting to look like Moxley is the only member of his crew that can't win a match without resorting to cheating.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why they're doing that with him. That's I don't get it.
Yeah, so I don't know whatever the Death Riders are trying to get across, but whatever it is, it's not landing the way you're hoping it will. Because I can't imagine that you're hoping for people to basically not understand whatever the Death Riders are trying to do, and also to think Jon Moxley is a little bitch. Because that's where we're getting. So, pretty sure that's not your intended message. So
I certainly hope not.
Fix it. Yeah. I also don't think, or I hope, that your intended message is not, we are a white supremacist group. But that's what's coming across as well, and that you might want to step away from, assuming it's not intentional. So that's my 2 cents on the Death Riders. And as the main event goes, you know, it was a good match until it wasn't, is how I feel about that. And then we have post-match stuff. So after the match, Wheeler Yuta shows up with some sort of what they call disinfectant chemicals. I don't know. To me, it looked like a bottle of antifreeze. And it was probably like refilled with, I don't know, Gatorade. And they pour it all over Orange Cassidy. And Cassidy then proceeds to, you know, spaz out on the floor like he's had acid poured down his throat. And then Hangman Page shows up and he lays out Wheeler Yuta with a chair. And Page then proceeds to stare down Moxley. And then Christian Cage shows up. And I'm like, oh, shit. This might be about to get good, because I'm thinking Cage is gonna cash in. And then Cage hits the kill switch on Moxley, and I'm like, oh shit, he's definitely gonna cash in. But then he takes 999,463 billion minutes to decide if he wants to cash in, and that gives Jay White time enough to come in and lay Christian out with a Blade Runner. And then the Death Riders all pull Moxley out and retreat, you know, to preserve, I guess, the title. And so they try to get back in their truck, but then another car comes out of nowhere, a car that's like got skulls and crazy shit on it, and just just T-bones their truck before any of them are in it. And they look around, and then they jump one of the valets and take some keys and figure out that a nearby SUV is available. So they apparently just stole someone's car and hop in and leave. And then out of the car comes Darby Allin, who is unhinged as shit, and he's like, where are you going, John? Why are you leaving, John? And then he tries to climb up on the truck that he just obliterates and slips and slides and falls all over the place, and finally makes it up there the whole time going, where are you going, John? Why are you leaving? And then he tries to hit the car with the windshield with his skateboard, but like the windshield's like, and? So... yeah. And that was when we went off the air, and that was the end of AEW Full Gear.
Yeah.
And so that was a tremendously long pay-per-view, as AEW is wont to do, and I love it, but I'm weary from 9 matches back to back. All told, all other things aside, what would you rate AEW Full Gear 2024?
I'm gonna give it probably one of the highest scores that I've given anything we've reviewed. I'm gonna give it a 9.5.
Oh, snap. Even with all the criticisms we laid out.
Yeah. Because this was a pay-per-view that I had no excitement for. Um, I would say maybe 80% of the matches I didn't even care about. Um, and it made me interested in it. Like I was mostly interested in Will Ospreay's match, and Swerve's match. Those were the two that I was mostly interested in. As much as I love Ricochet, I wasn't that invested in it because I knew that he wasn't gonna win. Uh, I knew he wasn't gonna win. I did know that I was gonna see him do some high flying awesome shit, and I did. But I mean, I could see him do awesome high flying shit on any show at any time. Um, but the main match, the main thing that I was interested in was Osprey versus Fletcher.
Fletcher, yeah.
And honestly, if I were it like oh, if I was just gonna completely mark out for these two dudes, I could just say that this is 10 all by itself. And everybody else brings it down, so that makes the whole show 9.5.
Oh, shit.
That's how great this match was. I'm sorry. That's how
I
great this match was. This
I'll agree
match
with you. I'll agree with you that this match was a 10, but I don't know that I will go so far as to say everything else was bringing the whole show down by
well,
comparison.
I don't really mean that. I'm saying that that's how good this match was for me. That I would give the show a 10 and then say 9.5 though, because honestly though, the whole show together was a 9.5, and the Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay match was just just amazing, wonderful, uh, like main course that was just we could have stopped the show right there. Like that was amazing. Everybody go home now. Nothing else is going to please my eyeballs more than what just happened there. That's how great the match was. But there were other matches that were great. Hangman versus Jay White. Great match. Jay White is one of my favorites as well. He looks good. I have to give points to the fact that Mercedes Moné and Chris Statlander made me give a shit about the match because they were good. Watching Roderick Strong get into a backbreaker in the craziest ways on MJF, that was amazing to see. Getting to see the Outrunners do their move on Big Brody, that was amazing to see. So there were lots of good stuff in this live event. Full Gear went all out. It was a long show. This was a long podcast. Um, there's smoke coming off of my tongue. Um, but it was good. It was good. It was fun. This was a fun one. So yeah, 9.5, top tier, absolutely.
9.5 neck nubs. That's big.
A lot of Nick Nubs.
That is a lot of neck nubs. I think I'm going to bite your style and also give it a 9.5. And
Yeah.
I will say the only reason I'm not giving it a 10, because if I go just by the matches, the worst match on the card for the night is still a good match.
Yeah.
And it only goes up from there, and it goes up from like to very good to great to like then there's Osprey and Fletcher, which is another level. And so when you're starting it good and you only go up, you end up with a hell of a show. The only reason I'm docking 5 points is that there's a couple of confused storylines and a couple of confused characters that if they could iron that out, they would have no flaws. But, going into matches like Jack Perry and Danny Garcia, where the build up to that literally poured ice water on it. I can't not consider that. And then like the intro for Garcia. Ugh. And then you've got the confusing and possibly offensive nature of the Death Riders and what that's doing as far as Moxley's character. That needs some hammering out too. And that's a top angle. That's where your world champ is in. And then the confusing stuff going on with like MJF and Adam Cole's angle that's gotten even more confused with like a weird insert of Kyle O'Reilly. who,
Yeah.
like we pointed out, isn't really tracking blame correctly. And I mean, I know some of this stuff isn't new to pro wrestling, and some of it can get hand waved because, dude, pro wrestling. But there's a difference between something that's like pro wrestling cheesy or pro wrestling logic, like, oh, you stepped on my shoes. We can only settle this in the ring. You know, I get that, but then there's stuff that just doesn't track right. Like that to me goes beyond like what we can give a pass because it's pro wrestling. And if AEW is where the best wrestle, then those who are the best wrestlers should get better story arcs.
Yeah.
So you might need to go and find the best writers. And that's really my only complaint, because this entire pay-per-view, as you pointed out, we came into it with very low expectations, and not at all because of story buildup. If anything, it's all personalities. Like, it's people we wanted to see, and we knew that they were going to work right their asses off. And that's cool, but you also have these storylines, and the storylines need some help. Some of your bigger ones that involve like MJF and Adam Cole. This is a continuation of one of your hugest storylines, you know. And you've introduced these Death Riders and intend for them to be a big deal, and they're not coming across that way. You know who came across as a big deal tonight? Literally anyone in Don Callis's stable, and the Hurt Syndicate. The Hurt Syndicate came in here and squashed Swerve back into the mid card. That's what I saw happen tonight. And I'm a little confused about how I feel about that, but I'm curious. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt to see, you know, how Swerve might bounce back. But I mean, everything in this show, because we had no expectations, or we had muted expectations, or even had negative expectations coming into it, only to then have them turned around by sheer peerless excellence of work rate and what they did in that ring, and some of the storytelling that happened inside the ropes. That was amazing. But I have to discount, like, I would give it a 10, but it gets knocked down to a 9.5 because there's a couple of big storylines and some other stuff that really could use some work. And if they can hammer that out, then I predict 10 of 10s down the line for AEW, despite what all of the online haters say and everybody who wants to just diss on AEW to hate on AEW. Dude, Mercedes Moné put on a very good match. With Chris Statlander. That in and of itself, like, you want to talk about miracles, it's almost a miracle that she was able to come up to that level. So I have to give a lot of credit there too, and I have to give credit to Mercedes Moné. And this better not be a one-off. Like I said, it better not be that you just played good one time to get critics to shut up, because I will be right back on your ass talking about how lame you are if it keeps up. And seriously, if you can see that people think you're doing too damn many Meteoras, don't be a dick and just keep doing too many Meteoras. Do something else. You know what I mean?
I do.
If she can do that, I'll be back on board. I'll be chanting CEO with the rest of them, because that's all I ever wanted. You know, I just wanted her to show up and prove that she's worth being the highest paid woman in sports entertainment. And this is the first time I've even gotten close to seeing that. So now you've shown me that you can. So if you don't, now I'm really going to be on you. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I'm watching, and I've got an open mind. So, keep on keeping on. And the rest of the pay-per-view was outstanding. I mean, I agree with you that, everything that came after Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher was like having to deal with coming after the biggest pop in the show. I mean, that's just rough. But I think they did very good. Like, these matches all ranged from good to amazing. And so when you have that, there was no bad or no this sucked ass. 9.5, top tier.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my review. And
mic drop.
Having said, I hope not. That means it fell off my head. No. Having said that, I would like to thank everybody who joined us for this extended play episode of Top Tier and our review of AEW Full Gear. And I hope you will join us for our next episode, which should be WWE's Monday Night Raw for 11/26. And until then, I don't think there's anything more for me to do but roll the outro.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media for updates and to join the conversation. Until next time, everyone, remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier.